Good evening and welcome to the January the 8th meeting of the Abingdon Town Council. I want to wish you all a very happy new year, and I'm going to give Ms. Patterson a minute to get her iPad started. And I would like to ask anyone in the audience, if you have a cell phone, to please put it on silent. And just take this couple minutes to check your phones, please. You ready? Okay. So at this time, I would like to ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
I'm having a blank.
Craig.
I did this the last time,
Craig.
thank you. I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me. Mr. Craig, I'm so sorry.
Here.
Ms. Patterson.
Here.
Mr. Howard.
Here.
Mr. Humphries.
Here.
And Mayor Lowe.
Here.
And let
Thank
the
you.
record reflect that all 5 council members are present.
And before we go into a possible closed session, I am going to ask Ms. Patterson if she will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Okay, and so we have the consideration, council, of a possible closed session pursuant to section 2.2-311A7 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended for the purpose of discussing possible or probable legal action. Do I have a motion?
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Is this something that we could move down a little bit? There's quite a few people here tonight, several of them for the retirements of Officer Hay, Overbay, and Snodgrass, and then for the installation of Blake Eads and Eric Lucy. And I know that rather than keeping a lot of these people waiting, could we just move this down to maybe,
H.
yes, in place of H?
We can, if it's the council's pleasure.
Okay, so I would move that if we do a closed session, then we move it down to H rather than go ahead and delay anyone who would like to hang around for a while.
Madam Mayor, we, in light of the way that the agenda was put forth, we informed the police officers, so I think we only have 2 of the 3.
We got 3, we're missing the 2 to be promoted.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we have to wait for them. So,
Okay, well then that's, I'll go ahead and make the motion to go into closed session.
okay. Do I have a second?
May I ask, we can do the second, and then I'll ask. Go ahead.
I'll second.
Okay.
And I just want to make
Discussion.
sure. Discussion. This is for the EEOC, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Craig.
Yes.
Ms. Patterson.
Aye.
Mr. Howard.
Aye.
Mr. Humphries.
Aye.
Mayor Lowe.
Aye. Okay. We'll be right back.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
And Mayor Lo?
Aye.
Okay, and now the certification.
Okay.
Whereas the council of the town of Abingdon, Virginia has convened in a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions set forth in the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended requires a certification by the town council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. And now therefore be it resolved that the council of the town of Abingdon, Virginia hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from an open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting, to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the town council. If you agree, please answer with "I so certify."
I so certify.
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 Very good, thank you. We have had the Pledge of Allegiance, so we are down to approval of minutes. Council, what is your pleasure?
I move we approve the minutes. Second.
Any discussion or corrections? Roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mayor Lo?
Aye. And we are now down to public comments. And before I start calling folks to come to the podium, I want to let the Ellers know that you are on the agenda to speak. So I'm not going to call you during public comments, but you will be on the agenda for your request. Okay? All right. The first person on the list is Nan Harmon. Please restate your name, state your address, identify any organization you represent, and I will note that each speaker will have 3 minutes for comments. Each speaker will be timed by the town clerk once your comments begin, and you will be given a cue when 1 minute of speaking time remains. Speakers are reminded that neither council members or staff will address questions or otherwise engage with speakers during the public comment period. Thank you. Ms. Nan Harmon.
All right, thank you. I'm Nan Harmon. Live at 498 Green Spring Road in Abingdon. And this is just my personal commentary on the Meadows Development, the blasting situation. At the December 4th Town Council meeting, there was discussion of blasting as part of the private public development at the Meadows. And Mayor Loeb stated they're just dumping dirt on our property, and looked to Town Manager Kelly, and Mr. Kelly stated there'll be no blasting on our property, after which Mayor Loeb restated we'll be doing no blasting on our property. And I think the technical fella is going to cue that video up. It's just a few seconds.
And this is a public-private development as well.
Correct, but they're just dumping dirt on our property. I don't think
Be
we're
no
not,
blasting on our
we'll
property.
be doing no blasting on our property.
And if you all can. Okay, all right. That if everyone can please speak into the microphones. I know you start discussing things and you're, maybe sitting back in your chairs. But anyway, that being said, on December 22nd, the blasting began out at the Meadows. The first blast was actually on town property. And after Christmas, I picked up my mail at the post office box, and I had a letter from the town dated December 21st. That was Thursday. And there was no possible way I could have received that letter before the first blast on the 22nd. Now, that letter was posted on the town website, but not until the 22nd. Again, not enough time to prepare if I had wanted to move my livestock or monitor or that kind of thing. On on December 28th, there was an article in Bristol Herald Courier about blast site schedule for the Meadows construction. Stated the first blast would be Friday, December 29th. That was actually a week after the first blast. And I heard a few comments from citizens saying, wow, I shook my windows or whatever. They didn't know the blast was going to happen. But I just don't know if it was misinformation or that the town, we just didn't know that that was going to happen. But like I said, just my commentary is that just adds sometimes to the frustration of the matter. Does the town, I'm the town too, does the town know what's going on, or is it left up to the developer? But thank you.
Mr. Joe Levine.
Hi. I signed up, and Donna signed up right after me because we have a joint statement which will take more than 3 minutes, if that's okay. Joe and Donna Levine, 340, 350 Green Spring Road. We're making this statement as private property owners. While many Friends of Abington members and other Abington citizens may share our concerns, we're speaking as individuals. The blasting is not an isolated case. Number one, in December 2015, with approval of the prior town council, the town manager signed a contract between the town of Abington and Marathon Realty in which Abington took on unknown obligations and undefined liabilities. In over 40 years of professional experience as technical director, business manager, and vice president, chief commercial officer with 3 different international companies, I have negotiated and signed numerous contracts and joint development agreements. I have worked with attorneys and law firms in various U.S. states, several countries in Europe, Asia, and South America. Not once in all of those transactions has any attorney ever advised me that it is prudent or permissible to sign a contract that contains obligations that are not specified or liabilities that are not clearly defined. We asked this town council to look into exactly what obligations and potential liabilities are encompassed in the December 29, 2015 assignment contract and share that information with its citizens. Number 2, as a result of the FOIA lawsuit, we know that on July 29, 2016, the town of Abington received a letter from Washington County Commonwealth Attorney stating that Council Patterson does not, I repeat, not have a conflict of interest associated with the Meadows development. That information, and even the fact that an opinion had been requested, was kept secret from councilpersons Patterson and Craig for almost a year. During the December 5, 2016 town council meeting, a citizen asked Ms. Patterson to recuse herself from voting on the Meadows. The town attorney was present at that meeting, but failed to set the record straight. We must ask why. Just minutes before the October 3, 2016 town council meeting began, council members were presented with copies of the Marathon final plat. Councilpersons Craig and Patterson requested that the item be moved to a later date to give council members time to read the document and to consider consequences for Abington. Mayor Lowe, Vice Mayor Humphreys, and Councilman Howard turned down that request and then voted to approve the final plat. The document obligated the town to place a runoff retention pond for Food City development on town property. We ask if the town will be responsible for maintenance of the retention pond. How much will it cost? What liability will the town have if environmental or other problems develop at the retention pond? These serious matters were not even discussed prior to passing the motion on a 3-2 vote.
Number 4.
Wait a second. Please state your name and...
I
yeah,
thought he did for me.
That's all
Donna
right.
Levine, 340, 350 Green Spring Road.
Thank you.
Number 4, for over a year and a half, the town manager and members of the previous town council repeatedly asserted that a financial analysis of the Meadows project had been conducted. However, during the December 4, 2017 council meeting, Councilperson Craig as probing questions of David Rose. The dialogue between Councilperson Craig and Mr. Rose made it completely clear that there has never been a comprehensive financial analysis run on the Meadows project. In fact, we learned that David Rose's company doesn't even perform business or financial analyses. Has any member of Town Council or the town staff ever seen details of the net revenue data that was provided to Mr. Rose? Has Town Council ever received a detailed line item cost analysis for the Meadows build-out? We ask that this council perform a comprehensive financial analysis of the Meadows project as recommended in FOA's September 5, 2017 position statement. The analysis should include details of projected revenues and costs and specify the assumptions and data used to generate the estimates. Number 5, last year this town council approved a $68,000 traffic study. The preliminary results, which were presented during the May 15, 2017 work session, showed that the Green Spring Road design is insufficient to accommodate the projected traffic. During the December 4, 2017 Town Council meeting, the town manager stated that he is directing that the road be built as designed. The Green Spring Road realignment project is on tonight's agenda. We submit that it would be irresponsible to approve the project without first considering the information received from the $68,000 traffic study. These items are major issues. Unfortunately, they are but a fraction of problems that appear to be widespread. Numbers of citizens feel that they have been talked to in circles without having their questions answered. It is time to end the secrecy, to curtail backroom dealings, and to institute truly open governance in Abingdon. It is incumbent upon the town to keep the public fully aware of plans for the future and to begin answering the public's questions in a full and straightforward manner.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And Stephen Jett.
Good evening. I'm Stephen Jett, 333 Court Street. This will be my shortest presentation ever. I just would like to quote 2 lines from our esteemed regional writer, Lee Smith. The power of the corporation so often seems unchecked, and it's terrifying. Progress triumphs over nature every time. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will hand that back down to the clerk. Okay, and now we have a special presentation by Chief Tony Sullivan. I would ask Tony to come forward, and would you like me to read what the presentation is first?
Yes, ma'am. That's
okay,
fine.
I will be happy to. This is well, it's bittersweet, but I will read that. We have 3 retiring officers: the School Resource Officer Alan Hay, Patrol Sergeant Charlie Overbay, and Lieutenant Bill Snodgrass. Could you please come forward?
Yes, if all 3 could come forward, that would be great. And it now looks like they're all auditioning for Duck Dynasty.
No Shave November went through January, right?
Well, you know, in Bill Snodgrass's case, he has not shaved. He has had to shave every day for almost 40 years. So, Alan Hay, there's a show on MTV, Breaking Amish. Alan is going to audition, I think.
Okay.
This is sort of round 2 for goodbye for these 3 gentlemen. Alan actually retired in August 1st, and when we spoke, he goes, "Oh, you can just wait until we do everything together." And I appreciate that on Alan's part, but tonight we gather to officially say goodbye to 3 of our oldest war horses, if we would. In doing so, we say goodbye to their humor, their stories, and most astoundingly, their combined 98 years, 2 months of experience.
Wow.
We've lost nearly a century of experience. Their retirement leaves a void in the agency, a void that will be filled, but never in the same way. Alan Hay, if you would step forward. Alan was hired on December 28th, 1987 by Chief Phillips at an astounding salary of $12,522 a year. You got shot at for that, you know that? Alan retired on August 1st as a school resource officer at Abingdon High School after he served for 29 years and almost 6 months. Still to this day, even though we've got a resource officer there, when I go to the high school, I'm asked, how's Officer Hay? And he did show up at the ball game the other night, and they gave him a lifetime pass, I think, didn't they? And he showed up, and it was just like old times other than the beard and the uniform. But we recognized Alan at our Christmas dinner. Actually recognized all three men. We gave him a retirement badge and a small token from the agency. But one of the things that, Alan, you missed out on, this was the year that you were earning your 30-year service award from the town. So we want to present you with that now and say thank you for your service on the part of the town. And then, before y'all start clapping, because we've got a lot to give these guys, a plaque from us at the agency, and it's presented to Alan Hay in honor of your dedication and over 29 years of loyal service to the Abingdon community. We, the members of the Abingdon Police Department, present this to you in recognition of your service, of your many years' service and sacrifice. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. May we all live up to your example. Happy retirement. Thank you. Don't sit down.
Yeah, don't sit
We'll
down.
have to get pictures. Next, we'll ask Charlie Overbay to step forward. Charlie was hired on January 30th, 1989 by Chief Cecil Kelly. He started out making a little more than Alan, $13,146 a year. On November 5th, 2004, Officer Overbay was promoted to sergeant. He earned the rank of sergeant. At that rank, he retires this January 1. His retirement brings an end to a career that lasted 28 years and 11 months. Many of you may have seen his sign-off that he posted on Facebook, which garnered almost 27,000 views on various pages, and everybody I played it for cried. And some of y'all may have listened to it and cried. But there's a couple things that we always give. Retiring officers in the Commonwealth are entitled to purchase their firearm, their duty weapon, for $1. And Alan already got his, by the way. So there it is, all cleaned up. The $1 was paid for by me today. There's your receipt, which is your transaction that you'll need. So that's one of the most important pieces we'll take with you. Also, we have a plaque, and excuse me, I mean, it's other than a different name, it's the same plaque. But in honor of your dedication and over 28 years of loyal service to the Abingdon community, we, the members of the Abingdon Police Department, present this to you in recognition of your service, your many years of sacrifice and service. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. May we all live up to your example. We thank you very much for your service and appreciate what you've done. And then last but not least, Bill Snodgrass was hired on March 8, 1978 by Chief Phillips at the astounding salary of $7,465 a year. He worked his way through, truly. He was promoted to corporal on July 1st, 1983, and he got a pretty big raise. He went up to $11,918. On July 1, 1985, he was promoted to sergeant, and he got a raise to $14,477. July 1, 1989, he was special agent in criminal investigations, went to the salary of $21,402. Finally, in May of 2002, he was promoted to field operations lieutenant, the rank at which he retires. January 1st, he brought to a close to a 39-year, 10-month career. As I said, we lost a large part of our identity as an agency when these three men walked out. However, while I did not do the record research for the employment records, I dare say that Bill retires probably as one of the longest-serving members of the department in the history of the agency. We greatly appreciate the service of all three men. And Bill, just like with Charlie, there's your firearm that you carried. And finally, we have a plaque in honor of your dedication and over 39 years of loyal service to the Abingdon community. We, the members of the Abingdon Police Department, present this to you in recognition of your many years of sacrifice and service. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but live by them. May we all live up to your example. Happy retirement. Y'all need to stand up here. Here, you'll take all this stuff. I'll join them. Alan just broke his.
Alan, I cleaned that today.
Him put it together and.
You did break it.
He was insane.
All right, we'll have to get it fixed.
You just got it?
If we turn a little sideways, I think. Thank you, Alan.
Who the son?
Who's mom and dad? I was hoping else to see that.
I don't, oh, I know how.
I wouldn't
Thank you all.
I
Thank
wouldn't
you for your
figure.
service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
39 years, man.
Alan, they gotta send that back.
He was buying stuff from Chief Christian. Weren't you buying stuff from Chief
Oh, yeah, down there at
Christian's
the
at the store? Yeah, we're gonna get you another one, Alan. Tennille, have you got AirDrop turned on? Turn it on. I've got front view here.
And this year was a different year for us. Sergeant Matt Duncan left the agency after 10 years of service to go join Brooks, Tennessee, which created a vacancy in our ranking structure. And then with the retirement of Sergeant Overbay and Lieutenant Snodgrass, we had another sergeant's vacancy occur. The gentlemen, the officers in our department, they're not handed a promotion. They earn it. They earn it through testing, evaluation, based upon previous work, how they clear cases. Then there's an interview panel that they go in front of. There's a written test they must take. And it truly is a dogfight. We had 6 officers who applied to be promoted in this first-line supervisor testing process a few months ago. And when I walked in and met with them all, I mean, my initial reaction was, wow, you know, any of you can get the job, and we would be in great hands. But 2 gentlemen that finished on top are here tonight, and we're going to formally promote them. If Blake Eads would come forward first, and Blake, you can bring your family if you would like.
can never guess he's only 2.
Well, I thought you were older than that.
Big fan.
Now, probably the most important part of the uniform is the badge, it's the symbol of trust. It's the symbol that we, as officers who have taken the oath at the youth witness, will live up to what that oath means. One of the things that I like to do when we promote somebody is I like them to ask somebody who's really important to them to pin their badge on. And there's your badge. I'm going to take this one from you. And we're going to put it in this nice container for you. And I'm going to ask you to let me. Tell us who that is.
This is my mother, Donna Cook.
Very good.
My father paid the same as you guys are. And he didn't have a vest on.
Don't do that. Congratulations. And you got a pair of used ones that these are brand new, Chevron. Thank you. There's the battle that you just took off. Congratulations.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, we'd like to shake your hand and thank you for all your service, and we look forward to everything that you are going to do to protect and serve us in the future.
We'll start halfway and go halfway.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
No cruise. No more cruise. If Sergeant Eric Lucy is available to come forward with his family. Ma'am.
You want to tell us who you have with you tonight?
Oh,
We'll
yeah,
do
yeah.
this first.
My wife, my son Tristan, Braden, and my mom and dad.
Okay, welcome everybody. Ready? All right. Do you, Eric David Lucy, so solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and the laws and ordinances of the Commonwealth of Virginia and the town of Abingdon, that you will abide by the Code of Ethics for law enforcement officers and the rules and regulations of the town of Abingdon Police Department, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all of the duties incumbent upon you as a sergeant for the town of Abingdon Police Department according to the best of your ability, so help you God.
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And now, obviously the same words, the symbol of authority, the symbol of trust, that represents that oath you just took. And with that, I'm going to not retire the number, just retire this badge. I'm going to hand this to you and let you pick a significant person dependent on it. Oh, you can get even on it, then. I'll let Mom do the first. Congratulations, and we appreciate all you've done and all you will do. And there's some brand new chevrons. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're very proud of all you've done.
Now, if you want to have fun, Eric's mom, and many of you know Eric's mom, she taught for a number of years at Abingdon High School, was a very successful volleyball coach. One of my favorite photos is the state championship photo that's hanging in the hallway with Eric when he's like 5 years old. And he had a little more hair then. Thank you all very much. Job well done, gentlemen. To our retirees, we thank you for your service. Madam Mayor, thank you. We're finished.
Thank you. We can't thank the Abingdon Police Department enough for all of the service that they have provided over the years. We are safe and secure in this community because of you, and I want you to know that this town council, and I'm sure past councils, truly appreciate all of your hard work and effort. Thank you. And while they're filing out, I want to say hello to Mr. Knight. It's good to see you.
A former,
Who used to be a police
former
officer.
town policeman right here.
Yeah. Okay, we are at petitions. We are at petitions, public hearings, and first reading of ordinances. There are none. Second readings, none. Consideration of bids for Green Spring Road Realignment Project, project number 4000-140-274-PE 101, VDOT UPC number 107752. Matt Bullock, Director of Public Services and Construction.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I am pleased to present to you tonight the bid results for your consideration for this project. This project will provide a great needed improvement to the town's traffic network, providing a safer and more efficient intersection of Green Springs Road and Cummings Street. I did want to take this opportunity to remind everyone this is a 50-50 cost sharing project with the Virginia Department of Transportation. So the town is responsible for 50% of the cost of the project, and VDOT reimburses us for the remainder 50%. These plans have been reviewed by the town staff, by VDOT, and by an independent engineering consultant hired by the town. Additionally, I'd like to thank Mr. Craig for his assistance with this project. He's been instrumental in helping us with some engineering, contractual, and legal matters that has helped smooth the process to get to this point, and I want to thank him for that very much. At this time, I'd like to recommend that Town Council accept the low bid of Baker Construction Services in the amount of $4,519,983.44, and further to authorize the town manager to execute all paperwork regarding this project, pending final approval of the bids by VDOT. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them at this time.
So, Baker Construction, as your letter says, that is your recommendation. The town has worked with them before, and you are pleased with their work?
Yes, ma'am. We reviewed all their paperwork they submitted with their bid and did some follow-up work with their references also.
All right. Council, do you have any questions of Mr. Bullock?
Kathy, I have a couple.
Okay.
Matt, who prepared the bid documents for this project?
It was a joint effort between the town staff and Highlands Engineering.
And Highlands Engineering is not the town's engineer, consulting engineer, is that right? They're
They
paid
are
by
on
somebody else.
They are under contract now.
But when the bids were...
When the bids were open, they were under contract.
My other question is, I believe you answered that AMT reviewed these plans. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
That's our engineer. The plans show a one-lane roundabout at the intersection of Green Spring Road and Cook Street Extension in the bid documents. That's what we bid on. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, when Davenport, who is our traffic consultant, presented their draft report, they recommended that we have a two-lane roundabout or a multi-lane intersection with more capacity than a one-lane roundabout. So who made the decision? Was it Highlands Engineering that made the decision to go with a one-lane roundabout in the bidding process?
I don't know whose decision that was. That was, I think, a consensus to move forward that way.
I think, at this point, I think it's, because it sounds like you have some questions that Mr. Kelly should answer.
Yeah, Mr. Craig, this goes back for 2 to 3 years under the prior council when this conceptual plan was originally presented at that point in time, and the council at that point in time authorized us to proceed with that. That being said, we did have Davenport come prior to the council at work session and present information relative to exactly what you're discussing, at which time I inquired, perhaps you will remember, in terms of whether or not this project could be built as is and then a phase 2 built later or designed later if the traffic warranted it, because in all reality the commercial development and the Green Springs realignment was going to take place I won't say long, but in closer time than the sports complex would ever be built and be built out. At that time, Mr. Wallace with Davenport indicated that was an acceptable way of proceeding with the phase 2. We think, and we thought at that point in time we had money that would be left over from this, that we could go ahead and do the engineering for that phase 2 based on the money that we've already have access to from VDOT under the existing revenue sharing fund, so that we would have a project on the shelf that was basically shovel ready at the time that the traffic numbers warranted that. I've had a discussion today with Mr. Wallace and with Andrew Hayes, who is here from Davenport, and we discussed this as a possibility of doing the phase 2, and it's my understanding that we have all the right-of-way that's necessary to do a phase 2 at a later point in time if the traffic numbers warrant it. So in going back to answer the original question, the choice and decision to move forward with the current design was a couple of years ago under the existing council at that time.
Well, Greg, with all due respect to the previous council and what you're saying, we did a traffic study to determine how much traffic the sports complex was gonna generate. And normally, you design a roadway for the traffic that you anticipate that it's gonna have. You don't go back later and tear it up or inconvenience the public. You build it, you build the roadway for what you're planning to build. It's the way I've always done it, and the way that VDOT has always done it when I've worked with them. You don't decide what kind of roadway you're gonna have until you know what traffic it needs to serve. And that's the purpose of the traffic study. It's told us what traffic we need to accommodate, the best advice we can possibly get, and that's what we need to build, in my opinion.
So we have a recommendation by Mr. Bullock, and council, do I have a motion on Mr. Bullock's recommendation?
Do we have any more questions, Mayor Lowe?
We do have we will have after motion and second, we will in discussion, yes.
Mayor, I move that this matter be referred to the Infrastructure Committee for a recommendation, and that the town manager be instructed to forward the bids, bid documents, and Davenport traffic study to the AMT for comment. I guess that's already been done, so.
And I second that motion.
Okay. Discussion?
Mayor, I think that somebody from the citizens should look at the traffic study, have the benefit. Our guest tonight, we're gonna have a benefit of the presentation of it, and let's take our time. I'm not trying to delay this project at all. I'm all for it. The Meadows is moving forward, but please, let's take a little time and look at what we're doing and build what we need right now. I mean, that's the only way I can possibly think about this.
And I have a question as well. Did you have a public hearing, Mr. Bullock, like VDOT has, to inform the public during the design process?
I think that's a question Mr. Kelly's gonna have to answer, because I don't think Mr. Bullock was Public Works
I'll
Director.
refer that to him.
Yeah,
to
we
Mr. Kelly.
we allowed the public, if you'll recall, to come to the incubator, and the plans for all the concepts were presented at that time, including the road as well as the sports complex and the commercial development.
And that was in 2015, I believe.
I'm not sure exactly the
Okay.
time frame of when that was. I mean, you were there at
Yeah,
that meeting.
2015.
Yeah.
I think it was in October. It might be maybe November. I remember that. But unlike Mr. Craig, though, and with all due respect again to everybody involved in this project, and the former council, and to you all, Mr. Kelly, and all the staff, I feel like that we shouldn't tear a road up and rebuild it. It's like when you have a cart, you build a cart to suit the horse. You got to get the horse first. That way you know the size of the horse. Same thing with traffic. You got to know. So that's with all due respect.
Any more discussion?
Wayne, if it's delayed and sent back to the infrastructure committee, just from your opinion, how long do you think it would be delayed?
I think that, Bob, I think it can be done without very much delay at all. The infrastructure committee
Meets this month.
meets next week, is
Right.
that right?
Right, correct.
So I think we could make a decision as to what we might recommend, and even if we change it, I think that part of the construction can go forward while we change the design. So I don't think there'll be much delay at all. Greg, what do you think about that?
Well, I think in all fairness for the folks who have bid on this, and we've informed them that, we would be looking to award the bid tonight. I hear what you all are saying about, redoing the road at some future point in time down the road, but that's exactly what we're doing with Green Springs Road right now. It's not adequate right now, so we're rebuilding that, and as I discussed and the staff discussed with Davenport, if those traffic numbers prove out at a later point in time, in my mind, that's a good thing. It tells me and the staff that the development is very successful and probably more successful than we anticipated.
Greg,
So-
but the cost, you know, we can anticipate that one-lane roundabout is not going to be adequate if we build the sports complex. That's what our traffic consultant is telling us. If you go back and build it later, you're going to triple or quadruple the cost. Look at exit 14. I mean, when you've got to maintain that traffic and you're going to inconvenience Food City, you know, it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry.
The only thing in my mind that a phase 2 does is we already have that existing right-of-way, which is plenty. It's more than large enough to do a different type of intersection where the roundabout is, and it's also, like I say, we should have leftover VDOT funds to be able to do the engineering on the Cumming Street section as well. But until such time as we know the numbers and we know when the sports complex is going to be built, I mean, in my mind, it's premature for us to do that.
Well, you know, you're guessing at, from that matter, you're guessing at the commercial development also, but you're still designing a road that you think is going to accommodate it. That's the same thing. The other point, Greg, is that the roadway leading to the 2-lane roundabout will have to be widened. And you're going to interrupt traffic entering the development to widen the road between Cook Street Extension and the roundabout. That has to be widened also. And we don't want to be doing that. We need to do that now if we think we're going to have the traffic. That just doesn't, it doesn't make sense to design something for knowing that a few years down the road, you're going to have to modify it. I mean, it's going to cost a fortune.
Well, all I can say, Mr. Craig, is I'm here to implement the will of the council. We had the will of the council the one time say to do this. If council changes its mind and wants to go in a different direction, I'll see to it that
I hope
gets...
that we'll at least think about it. I mean, before we do it, this is our future at stake here.
So
guys.
what are we looking at if it gets kicked back to the infrastructure committee and it all has to be rebid? Then how long are you looking at?
Well, it not only has to be rebid, but you have to have additional engineering for the additional work, which
I'm not sure it has to be. Why does it have to be rebid? This is a unit price bid.
Well, if that's true, then could be an add-on.
It could be a changeover. We've talked about that.
You can award the bid and then do an add-over.
You can award the contract and then still change it. Just tell the contractor to work somewhere else until you get it designed.
Well, that's not my call to change it. That's your all's call to change it if you want it changed.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we
So
should
it sounds
change
like there's two issues here. One of them is the bid going to again be awarded, and then somewhere along the line, we're going to have to decide what exactly has to be done in addition to the roundabout, if we want to change it.
If you want to change it, but I will tell you that the contractor, I believe, is prepared to start on this project as soon as it's awarded. So, you know, to change it and to do the other engineering is, you know, it's going to take some time to do that. And, you know, we'd certainly have to talk to the contractor and see how that floats with their schedule. But based on the way we bid it, it was bid good to go.
Well, I'm disappointed that this hadn't been discussed, Greg. I'll just be honest with you. This was finalized, from what I've been told, back in July, and nobody's discussed this with me or any of the other council members that I know of. This is a big decision, and I'm disappointed. We shouldn't be here.
Well, again, Mr. Craig, I'm going to tell you that this happened before you were ever on council.
I understand. Well, no, I'm sorry. We didn't finalize the design before I was on council.
The conceptual plans for
this.
this...
Yeah, conceptual plans are conceptual plans. That's not final design plans. That's an entirely different matter.
You know, you get the council to go along with what you
that's
want,
what
I'll implement it.
Let's call for the question, please.
Let me say one thing, and I don't know, you know, comparison-wise, the Falls looks to be a very similar situation to what we're doing, probably larger. They have a roundabout, it's just one lane. I mean, that's,
Bob,
I mean,
I don't know. We're gonna have a consultant tell us. I mean, if one lane roundabout's okay, then, you know.
Okay, we've called for the question. Mr. Humphries called for the question, so roll call, please.
Wait. Let's
make sure what
we know
the
what
issue-
we're bidding on, everybody knows
Okay.
what they're voting on.
The motion from Mr. Craig was,
You want me to read it, Kathy?
sure.
I move that this matter be referred to the Infrastructure Committee for a recommendation, and that's all. I move that this matter be referred to the Infrastructure Committee for a recommendation to Town Council.
But you're not gonna make a motion to award the contract, right?
No, the committee will recommend what contract to award.
You see if this one passes, and then there might be
Okay.
another one.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
No.
Mr. Humphries?
No.
And Mayor Lo?
No. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so, Madam Mayor, I move that we, accept the low bid of Baker Construction Services at $4,519,983.44.
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
No.
Ms. Patterson?
No.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
And Mayor Lo?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are down to consideration of certificate of public necessity for Eller Taxi Service, LLC, 214 Park Street, Office 6, Abingdon. Mr. Greg Kelly, and I see the Ellers coming up.
Madam Mayor, members of council, I'll let them give you an overview, and then I'll tell you what the process is from here on out.
Okay.
My name's Sabrina Eller.
I'm Stephen Allen.
Okay.
We're the owners of Eller Taxi Service LLC. We've noticed that Abingdon hasn't had taxi service available in, from my understanding, right close to 20 years.
At least.
At least.
We opened in Chilhowie originally. Chilhowie was just a small town. Wasn't enough there, so we moved to Marion, which we, as of today, are still and have been up and established. We started in April of, excuse me, I've got a little bit of the nerves.
It's all right.
It's been a year and a half. So, we've been up and running in Marion for a year and a half. We did want everyone to see the reviews that we have, which are, by the way, legit, because you can hire someone to put fake reviews on your account. But I did want you to see what our customers do think about us. We are minivan accessible. All of them are. That's what our fleet will be. No smoking. My vehicles are very well maintained. I do most of the office work. Mr. Eller here does most of our mechanics, keeps everything up. And we would like an opportunity to help the residents here, you know, to have a steady transportation. We know that there's the thing with Uber. We're not really on board with Uber. Myself, we do not really agree with it. Like I said, to each his own, but we want to keep the community one-on-one. Everyone knows everyone. Also, I have another matter I would like to discuss with y'all. We do have the office on Park Street. At that office, we have a few complications that we feel like is unsafe for our company. So we have looked at another office. Is that a big deal that we have a different office address?
So I'm gonna let Mr. Kelly,
I mean, we still have the Park Street, but let me explain to you why, that we feel as though we should move one office to another. On Park Street, at nighttime when you park, our drivers, he's given us 2 designated parking spots all the way back at the railroad track. And at the railroad track, then our drivers would have to walk around the building, unlock the door, go all the way up to the 3rd floor, each time that they come in. We feel, as business owners, if our people park in the back and they have to carry that cash into us, we feel like they're sitting ducks. You know, and we all know that this job is not the most safest job in the world, that, you know, you're dealing with strangers in the public. Although 9 out of 10 people will be pleasant, I always have those things. We want our things and our drivers, our employees safe.
So can you tell me, where you're currently located? You say Park Street, is it, I'm a
Okay, for starters,
destination person, is it in the top of Holston Mountain Artisans?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and the space actually is not big enough for dispatch and drivers to be there.
So do you have another space
I
in
do.
mind, and do you have that address?
I do, and I have spoken with the man. It is 25267 Lee Highway, Suite 6. Now, on that note, I think it may be right at the town limits sign. It's the storage building beside the Morgan McClure Racing.
That's out of town.
King's Closet.
That's out of town.
So can I petition the town to have a license to operate in town limits?
You need to have a place of business within the town limits.
So there's no way that I could petition for the town to let me operate in this with a county address? Because that's, you know, that's what we do now.
Yeah, that's part of what our ordinance is, and you need to actually have a physical address inside the town limits.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you actually have to operate out there, you just have to have an
Right.
address, don't you? I mean, it could be a business office.
So could we get a P.O. box and let that?
No,
No.
no.
So if I kept the office as like, I mean, what I'm trying to do is, I know that I can still have the office outside in the county limits.
What we can do is, if the council elects to move this forward tonight, because you will have to have a public hearing on this at the next council meeting, you can come and meet with the town staff, town attorney, and/or me, and we can walk you through the exact things that you're going to have in order to comply with the ordinance and to be ready for the public hearing next month.
Okay, well, actually, sir, with all respect, we've been going through this for 4 months, and that is a lot of the reason that things are not the same for us, and we don't have the answers that we would have had 4 months ago. We've been on hold for 4 months.
Because of?
Because of what?
We have no idea.
Well, there has to be, it's a very complicated process, and it has to be a police investigation that
Yes,
takes
sir.
place, and that takes time, so this
We
is
completed
not,
that 2 months ago.
yeah, but this is not something that takes place really quickly, and you know, it's part of the process of the ordinance, and I'm sorry that you've had to go an extended period of time,
The
but
reason that I state that, and is that it says in the business license, it takes 6 to 8 weeks.
you're
we
mixing
were-
up two different things. There's business license, and then there's also taxi cab
Excuse me, I
ordinance.
can't hear everybody. If you will please be quiet so that Ms. Eller and Mr. Kelly could conduct their conversation.
And that's what I'm saying. If you'll come to meet with us between now and when this gets advertised for public hearing at the February meeting, we can walk you through what is remaining. You've done the biggest bulk of all the work that you need to do. The next thing is just to come forward at the public hearing, and we can tell you where you can be and what is required to get your license and to get your business license in that regard. But the council has a
So it will be another month
task.
before we will be able to open in this town.
I'm sorry.
So
ma'am.
it'll be another month before we can open?
Yes, the council has to have a public hearing on this.
That's
and
not fair to us.
Well, ma'am, I wish you'd let me try to explain this to you. The council has to have a public hearing on this. And that's the next process. The first process is here tonight, and then there'll be a public hearing, and then the staff has to recommend to the council for them to set the rate that you can charge. That's nothing that you get to automatically set yourself. That's up to the governing body to set those rates.
Okay, we are on meters.
I
But-
understand that, but the rate that you charge on those meters
I
is,
can guarantee you it's the lowest in Virginia.
well, that
I did read, I read that ordinance again because that taxi cab ordinance is new to us and we didn't, you know. So I read it again and it does say that. I was surprised that it says that, but it does say that the council has to approve your, rates. I'm sorry that it has taken you 4 months to get to this point, but as Mr. Kelly stated, I think the Code of Virginia,
it's all set out in both the Code of Virginia and in the town ordinance, the
Yeah.
precise procedure.
You know, to not bore you too much with governmental things, but, you know, our ordinances match what the General Assembly allows us to do. And so, I'm sorry about the public hearing, you know, I am sorry about the 4 months, but we are gonna have to have a public hearing.
We just don't understand, you know, because we've been the company, and this is our third different town council meeting. We don't understand why it's taken 4 months. And all our employees that we had on board, we no longer have an employee.
Y'all been here before?
No.
They've
We've been
Thought you
trying
said
to
you
get
did.
here for
4
4
months
months.
Oh. I thought
So
you
now,
said-
and I'm just for a matter of history, just to fill me in, is you started Chilhowie, they gave you a license, and then you went to Smith County, and they gave you a license. How long did it take to get the license in both those counties, in the town and the county?
Immediately. Chilhowie, we went through and everyone gave a yay or nay. We went to Marion, we had to go back to the second one and everyone gave a yay or nay, and we
Okay.
bought our business license.
So you're saying it was like 2 months, that's what it was?
One meeting. 1 month for Marion and the very first meeting for Chilhowie. That's why we're saying we really do not understand, and I mean, as far as business people, I hope you all understand that if you're trying to start a business, 4 months, you're gonna sink before you ever start.
Miss Rosenbaum, or Miss Eisenhower, I don't know how I'm supposed to ask this question too, but, how far, like if we put the public hearing out tomorrow, how long does it need to be advertised before we can actually have a public hearing?
2 consecutive.
twice with a certain given number of days before and after, so to be time correct.
Well, I guess I'm asking that question to see if we can't speed that up by having a midday public hearing at the earliest possible time. So is there some,
The code section's in your all's packet. If you give me a minute, I'll pull it up.
I guess basically, like I said, as we were going forward, it said that we should have to reply for 6 to 8 weeks. And that's my biggest thing, is it's really put our company in a major spot, and then again, we're saying 30 more days. We've waited 4 more months, 30 more days. Y'all need it, but are we gonna be here?
Now, the
So-
applicant is responsible for payment of the public hearing ad, and we have to have an in-town address to advertise with that.
you currently have an in-town address,
Currently have an
right?
in-town address.
We have that address, yes.
And you are renting that space right
We
now,
still have that
currently?
space rented,
Okay.
yes.
I will quote to you what the ordinance says. No certificate shall be granted until the matter has been advertised at the applicant's own expense once a week for 2 successive weeks within a month prior to the regular meeting of the council. Which application will be made in a newspaper of general circulation in the town, giving the name of the applicant, the date, as the regular meeting of the council. And that's section 82-50.
So that would mean even if we advertise this next week, it would be an additional 2 months then.
The council doesn't meet again until February, we only meet once a month.
But what I'm saying is it runs for
says
2
30
weeks
days.
and then it has to be 30 days after it's run. That's gonna be 2 more months for us. 6 months to open a business in your town.
Well, this is the first time I've heard about it, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I think
I'm
everyone
sorry.
should have.
Yeah, the first
I
time
mean,
we've
you
all
know,
heard
the
about it.
first taxi in 20 years, I think everybody ought to know about this. My personal opinion, you know, because we're here to work with every one of y'all. We want to help your family and your family and your family, but 6 months down the road, we're not going to have anything. I mean, we're going to have to decline it if it's going to be another 6 weeks because we cannot financially, we cannot do this.
The only clue that we had was the ordinance when Ms. Eisenhower presented us with the ordinance. I had a clue, but I didn't know that anybody was applying.
I don't understand why it has taken me 4 months to get here, just here. Can anyone tell
Well,
me?
I think,
Well,
I think
that's
you-
what I'm trying to tell you. If you look at the code that we have to go by, it sets forth each and every part of the process. And, you know, the investigation of this takes time.
Has been done. Everything has been
I
completed
understand that, but
over
those,
8 weeks
those
ago.
are things that have to take place to get to this point.
one of the things we might want to look at as a council is that, and this doesn't help you all any, but obviously if Marion can do it within a month, if Jill Howie can do it within one meeting, then maybe we need to revise or streamline our process. And that's something that we can work on. I think it probably, you know, not having one in 20 years, and at one time you could only apply during the month of October, am I right?
December.
December, yeah. At one time, it was only one time a year could you even apply. And so we thought we'd kill that, you know, we'd taken care of that problem. And obviously there's an additional problem that has occurred. This helps us. Doesn't help you all, but it helps us. It helps us in trying to get something that's going to be more applicable for when someone else wants to do this. We're hoping you'll hang with us. It sounds like we're really, really close. I don't know if there's anything that will expedite that, but if it is, but they are right. If it's 30 days after the 2 weeks, it's going to be in the March meeting before that they can even be, then we can even do anything.
Unless you had a special meeting.
That's what I was wondering about.
Well, I
would be willing to have
to do a special
Thank
meeting.
you.
I mean,
Thank you.
Well, I mean, we need you. We need you guys. We really do.
We need y'all.
Yeah.
but
You know, we
after-
all
if
need each
If
other.
they advertise for two consecutive weeks, you still gotta wait 30 days, don't you? That's gonna still, I mean, it'd be a mid-month February meeting.
It would.
If we
It
do a
would be
mid-month
this-
February, that'd be great. We could do a mid-month February. And still be
They wouldn't say
be
you are.
earlier than March.
Yeah.
So it'll be March, if y'all can hold on.
We're trying. I mean, we're just literally taking a
Can
day
we
at a
get the
time.
ad in the paper tomorrow?
It's gonna be too late to have it in tomorrow. It would be, the first thing would be Thursday.
The only thing that I can think of that may have impacted the difference between the two localities is the fact that when we changed, the Virginia code had just been recodified in that area. And theirs may be existing, Smith and whichever, may be existing under a former one. And we changed it to update it, patterned it somewhat after Blacksburg's.
Right.
So you're saying that Thursday, the 11th, is as soon as we can get the ad in, is that correct?
That's the best you can do, I'd say, isn't it?
Well, there's only 28 days in February, so a special meeting's not gonna help that much. It's gonna be about 5 days. If the code says that you have to wait 30 days, the first,
I suppose we can just wait to
two.
extend it. It's been this amount of time. 2 weeks is,
Well,
Well-
I would like to see this happen. I don't know how about the rest of the council feels.
I
I
do.
mean, I would,
Yeah.
I would like
We
to
do
show
need
you
you.
that this is a copy of what we would like to make our business cards look like. You know, we wanna let everybody know this is Falcon territory.
So you're gonna get those cars blue and white then, right, rather than orange and brown,
Right.
rather than show how it colors.
Yes, we are. Actually, in the state of Virginia, you have to have your own color coordinates. I don't know if you realize that, but every taxi company is supposed to have their own color scheme. That way you can be identified away from others. So we started in Chilhowie, so we just kind of stuck with the orange and black, and we went from there. You know, like I said, we've really done a lot of our homework. We've noticed all the things. We have all the things to tell people to do here. You know, because that's part of our job is bringing people here. You know, and as this Dennis Rigton right here, on the top of this review right here, we actually brought Mr. Rigdon here to Abingdon. He came here to stay in one of your cabins off the trail that someone had owned, and we picked him up from Marion and brought him to Abingdon, and then come out and got him, and you know, he chose, and he said a wonderful and friendly couple run this taxi service. You'll hear nothing but praise from me for them. They're good fellows, as their motto says, very friendly and a clean vehicle and timely pickup. And that's for y'all's community, and we want to do that for everyone.
Well, I think we want you here.
So what do we need to do about
The only question I have for you before we ask Mr. Kelly's recommendation is 30 days is 1 week before the next council meeting. I think we're all willing to have a special meeting if you would like that, but is 1 week going to make that big of a difference?
Not for us.
Okay.
So just on the next regular meeting, that we can get the 30 days in.
All right, and that'll be the first in
March.
March. So we report back in March then.
March the 5th for the public hearing. Because it has to be advertised twice, so it'll be the first Monday in March at
Okay. Is there
6:30.
anything that we can answer for anyone?
I don't think so. Did you have anything else to say about that, Mr. Kelly?
No, I'm happy to work with you and walk you through everything else. If you want to stop by, just give us a call tomorrow, and me and Miss Eisenhower be happy to sit down with you.
Okay, we look forward to working with everyone as well. And just to throw this out there, we're hiring.
Well, hopefully we have learned something from this, and this won't, this is kind of growing pains for us because this is new to us.
But honestly, if there's anyone that would be interested, that anyone up here knows of, that would be an asset to a company, please send them our way.
I saw 4 retired police officers.
I was going to say,
walk
the
out
first
there.
And where'd they go? I have one that works for me now, and I love him. Mr.
Okay.
Foster, he served on Marion Police Department for 26 years. And now he's my driver, and I
That's
wouldn't give him for anything. And I like the 30 years older and up.
Okay.
Right.
All
Thank
right.
So,
you.
council, I think do I need a motion tonight? No.
Okay.
Okay. So we're gonna advertise twice, and we're gonna see you back the first Monday of March. And,
So, but if they have to pay
I'll
the
put on the mayor's
advertising,
Facebook page that you're looking
Yeah,
for.
we'll take care of that tomorrow.
Yeah, you'll need to get in touch with them immediately because you'll have to pay for that
Who
advertising.
can I write a check?
Yeah, you can, Kim, is that check straight to the newspaper, or is that to the town?
I'll get it with you because I have to do the ad, see if it even get the plate.
Okay, so you want to catch up from tomorrow? Okay. You have it already?
If it's the signatures on the application.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Sorry it took so
Because
long.
we want to make sure, we don't want to
Read it for
pay for it without the Tom being here, so
Right.
that's why we don't have a phone number and everything. I'm hoping that we can get something like 628 taxi, something.
Very good.
That would be good.
If Comcast works with us, we might.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Consideration of request from Virginia Highlands Airport Authority for reimbursement of a portion of expenses incurred to defend Appalachian Power Company's proposed South Abingdon 138 kV power line. Mickey Hines, Airport Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, if I could, I have a chart I'd like to take just a minute to set up for you.
Okay.
And it'll help explain the situation, if you don't mind. Thank you. All right, thank you. I'll try to be brief. I know you probably thought the 138,000 volt power line issue was settled. I think it is settled, but we want to kind of give you an update, and then I'll have our board chairman, Mr. John White, make an actual request. I wanted to show you this map that was done by the power company. I know it looks kind of busy, but I think I can explain it to you, and you can see actually what happened during the last 3 years. As you can see, this was done, I believe, by the power company in 2014. The little white area is Virginia Highlands Airport. The blue is nothing but the extended center of the runway. If you sit in the center of the runway and look straight this way, that's what the blue is. So back in 2014, when we first heard about this project, the power company said, we want to build this power line. Of course, we're all for it. I mean, we need power. We know that. They kind of chose this line right here. The green is what they first said. This is where we're going to go. This kind of goes east of Abingdon Elementary and then along Wendell Road, and it would have crossed Main Street in the neighborhood of Walgreens, the By-Right area, would have crossed the railroad there, and then crossed Colonial Road. And then you see the green stops. Well, the little yellow that's right there, of course, is the muster grounds. And as you know, the muster grounds has a, I think it's called a Department of Historic Resources easement. And so that stopped that project kind of dead right there, if you will. And they couldn't go left or right because of the residential areas. So the next proposal, they gave us two options here. They said it could go either way. And then it got the airport's interest. It was on higher terrain. They first said the towers would only be less than 100 feet. They came back with some of them 125 feet on higher terrain. So the ordinances came into effect. As you know, the town of Abingdon has ordinances to prevent construction of anything in this orange zone. Washington County also has identical ordinances, and those were mandated by the state back in the 1990s. So, a long story short, I won't bore you with all that, but we had a number of meetings with Appalachian Power Company engineers, the airport engineers, the Department of Aviation, the FAA, to see what we could do. Again, we didn't want to stop the project. We know we have to have power. I'm all for that too. But our job is to protect the airport and the assets of the airport. So after 2 years and a lot of legal expenses, Ms. Eisenhower helped us out a whole lot. Lucy Phillips with the county helped us out. We made trips to Richmond to talk to the folks up there that do the approval, the State Commerce Commission. So the power company finally agreed that this is kind of the route it's going to run. It's going to cross Main Street in the neighborhood of Pioneer Chevrolet and Dutton Wagner, but they would underground the system there. It'll be undergrounded about right in here. It's going to cost them about $10 million extra to do that, but they were willing to do it to protect the safety, the airport approach.
They're going to They're going to underground at
Yes.
Dutton Wagner and at Pioneer Chevrolet?
Well, it would start above ground until it got on the hill, I call the hill behind Pioneer Chevrolet. And then it would go underground there, would stay underground by Pioneer Chevrolet, under Main Street, under Dutton Wagner, and would come back out of the ground roughly in the area before it crosses Old Jonesboro Road. And then it would come back out of the ground and continue on to the proposed South Abingdon Station. So that satisfies us, it satisfies the FAA, satisfies Department of Aviation. We had a lot of support in this, the local delegates, Senator Carrico, Delegate Israel, let's see, Delegate Todd, yes, and others helped us out. Also, the Virginia Airport Operators Council helped us out, Virginia Aviation Business Association, everybody helped us out on this. But in the meantime, we incurred a lot of legal expenses. We had our own attorney, airport attorney, to help us, and we had to hire an attorney in Richmond to deal with the State Commerce Commission. We understand that the airport doesn't really provide any income for the town of Abingdon directly, but I can tell you, having been manager there for 10 years, that probably 90% of the people that fly into Virginia Highlands end up coming to a business in Abingdon, either a restaurant, hotel, or some other business. So with that, I'll turn the podium over to our chairman, John White, and then after he gets through, if you have questions, we'll be glad to take those.
Okay.
If that's all right.
All right.
All right.
Well, I had hired an assistant tonight to help me make my presentation, but she didn't show with her violin. I was going to play some real fast music while I present you all with our dilemma here.
Yeah, this is in our packet.
You got Scotty sitting there too.
What this is just a compilation of all the charges and expenses and legal fees that we incurred during this process, which this was the best solution for safety and for the preservation of the airport. And it came at a really good time because we have just completed getting the first major grant to extend the runway, which we have been many years in coming, and it's a little over $5.6 million. And it was a shame to extend the runway and then lose the benefit of it had this project went another way. And as Mickey said, here's what has happened. You're a government entity, and you have projects, and you have directions that you travel in, and you helped us defend the project. And at first, it was going to come through town and go through the muster grounds, which that wasn't going to fly good. That's not good. So anyway, in the long and the short, we finally, after they rerouted it, the problem came up that it was going to be a hazard for departures on runway 6 and approaches to runway 24 with a high tension power line. So jointly with the town and the county and the airport authority, we went to a lot of effort, and we did succeed in coming to a really good solution. I mean, people have to have power, and you have a town to protect and build and grow, and you've done a great job. Appalachian Power Company is under responsibility to provide power to people, and the airport is part of the infrastructure of the state of Virginia and the United States to help provide transportation. But what happened is we all three kind of came together, and you had your problems with town, and we have our problems with building the airport. And this one came between us a little bit. We, in the process, we feel like that we did help defend the ordinance of the county and the town with the money that was spent in legal fees. And this money came out of the coffers of the airport from its earnings, and the management of the airport has been really good, and the financial situation has not been very bad at all. They've stayed in the black, and the very purpose of that is we are mandated to match the funds of the federal grant, which is 90%, and the state matches 80%, and then we're going to match the local fund of 2%. Which, in a way, you think, well, that's not too much money, but when you take 2% of $5.6 million, and the whole total project is going to be over $21 million, it is a lot. And for us to get those grants, we have to have that money. And we do have it, but we did come up $117,000 short because, just like you didn't anticipate this happening to the town either, and we didn't anticipate it happening to the airport. But we did deal with it, and we dealt with it successfully with the joint efforts of the town and the county, and $117,138.42 worth of legal fees. And we did prevail with the SCC. So where we're at now is we need this money to have in our coffers to make the matching funds when they come. And now it's not a one-time fund that we got. Now that we are on the trail we have the first big grant to extend the runway, we will get the rest of it. And as they come, we have to have that money to match that, because that's what our agreement with the county was to do that. And it was misfortunate that this all fell upon our laps, but it did happen. So what we want to request is, and we know you have a budget just like everybody else, and this is somewhat of a surprise maybe, but we're not asking you for a specific amount, and we have asked the county for reimbursement, and we probably won't get the full reimbursement. But since the airport does provide a major benefit to the town and to the county, we feel that some participation would be in line, and it doesn't have to be instant. It doesn't have to be in the year 2018. Whatever, we're kind of at your mercy. We're giving you, asking you for requests for some portion of the funding over a period of 1, 2, or 3 years, because we don't have to come up with that money again until the first project's over with, which is about 4 years, 3 to 4 years. So if you would put that on an agenda to discuss among you, we would certainly request it and appreciate it. And we've done the same thing with the county. And I'm sure you could consult with the county and say, well, how much you going to give them? And that might determine how much you might want to give. But we do ask for it. We think it's a fair request because I started on that airport when I was 12 years old. And I was talking to Mickey today. And when I started flying out there with my dad, the terminal building that is there now was a building that was about 12 by 12, sitting on a little hump out there. The runway was nothing but a gravel strip. And then it got paved, and it was 37 foot wide and 2,780 feet long. And I used to fly corporate airplanes out there off that runway without an approach back when I was young and bulletproof and much sharper and much more capable of doing things like that than I am now as a corporate pilot. But now we've got this beautiful airport sitting out there, and it's even going to be more of an asset than that other 1,000 feet of runways in there. It's going to be much more safer, and especially safer since we didn't have to have this power line sticking up on the approach or the departure end of the runway. So we've been very fortunate in all the things that have happened in the development of the airport. And we want and hope that it's always a benefit to the town of Abingdon and Washington County. So that's my request, and I hope you will consider it. And thank you very much for your time.
Wait just a minute.
you
Y'all
have
stay
questions,
here.
you're about
Y'all
to-
stay here. I know more than I should know about this whole thing because I listen. I hear your board meetings, and I go to some of the county
You hear
meetings.
that violin, do you?
Right, I've heard your violin. I'm going to disclose that my husband is one of the airport commissioners that represents the Harrison district, so I would not vote on this issue one way or the other. And so I don't know if I'm going to hurt you or help you. As far as economic development is concerned, our largest employer, both in Washington County and in the town of Abingdon, does have an airplane down there. Is that correct? Matter of fact, I think he's got maybe 2, right?
Oh, you're talking about, he's got a new airplane now. They're down to 1 airplane, but it's a really nice, new modern airplane.
Okay, so you know, that is the town of Abingdon's probably largest employer that is within the corporate limits, I will say that. I did not know that until you made this presentation that they had agreed, last I heard, because I hadn't been involved in this whole thing until SCC hearing. Last I heard, they were not going to put the power lines underground for Pioneer Chevrolet and Dutton Wagner, and we did have a challenge, if you will, with Dutton Wagner and Pioneer Chevrolet. They were extremely concerned. They contacted me. I didn't hear this from the airport. I heard this from them, that they were, one of them was considering another location for their business if this didn't go underground. So I didn't know that you did that.
As far as I know, this was an order, and I don't have a copy with me. I can get it to Greg tomorrow, but the SEC order was that if this was constructed, Appalachian Power Company was instructed that it would be underground where it crosses the approach surface.
Okay.
And the approach surface is the little orange, it's marked on there. It goes on the hill, as I said, behind Pioneer Chevrolet, almost up to Old Jonesboro Road.
Okay.
So if that's changed, we haven't been notified of that, and I'm sure the SEC would find that surprising.
Okay.
But
So I
I'll
didn't.
see that you get a copy of the order. Deb, did you get a copy of?
I did.
Okay, so she has a copy.
So that's a surprise that the last Board of Supervisors meeting I went to with you all, I didn't know that. And the town of Abingdon did not go with the airport authority to the SCC meeting, so we kind of didn't know that. So that's a great thing, and you know, that is a consideration. I do also, though, here's the other hand, how much personal property tax does Washington County receive for the airplanes at the airport?
That's a very good question. Don't mind answering that at all. I can't give you a exact figure because obviously it changes every year. This year it's going to change because our friends at Food City bought a brand new, how many million? I don't want to say.
Several.
And I really don't know, but a several $1 million new jet aircraft. So they'll pay more property tax. Now they also got rid of an older one, so that'll come away. But to answer your question, usually the county receives somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 to $300,000 in personal property tax off aircraft based at Virginia Highlands Airport. I will say this, I'm always talking about the airport. There's only one other general aviation airport in the whole state of Virginia that has more based corporate jets than Virginia Highlands, and that's Manassas. I can't compete with Manassas, but I think we do a great job here in Southwest Virginia to have the base corporate aircraft that we have.
Now, here's the rest of the other hand. I happen to have been at the Board of Supervisors meeting when the airport authority agreed with the supervisors that they wouldn't request more than 1/2 of the personal property tax for their operational funds, and you stuck to that. I was also at the Board of Supervisors meeting when they cut you all down to $40,000 a year, so 1/2 of $250 is $125, and you went to 40, and then I watched the meeting where this past year, and correct me if I say the wrong things, because this is really things that I've watched from the Board of Supervisors, really.
Right so far.
Okay. 60,000. Did they raise you all up to 60?
They did after they approved their budget, and they wouldn't mind me saying this, they found some extra money because they did something about the 911 signs in the county. They had prisoners do it rather than hiring a firm to do it, and they saved enough money to find us $60,000. I would correct you one thing, they do not fund any operating expenses for the airport at all. It's all capital improvements.
Okay.
All of our operating expenses are paid from two things, fuel sales and hangar rents.
Okay.
And that pays the salaries and the insurance and the maintenance and the lights and all the other things that we do.
But your allocation was cut from 1/2 of the personal property taxes down to 40,000, and then only back up to 60. So you are still. That's the reason you're asking for this.
Yes,
for this.
as Mr. White said, we paid all the legal expenses up front. Attorneys don't like to wait on their money, understand that. But the money that we used to pay that actually came from a combination of capital improvement money that we were going to use and operating expenses. So at some point, we've got to pay that back. The state or the federal government, the county, no one gives us any money for operating expenses. And we're one of the few airports, probably the only general aviation airport in the state that does that. We don't come to the town, of course, or the county, and they say we need money for salaries or we need money for, we try to be self-supporting. Now they're very gracious in giving us grants for capital improvements, but this money that we took to pay the attorneys came basically from the operating expenses, and we've got to, at some point, put that back, or we're going to be in a situation we don't want to be in.
Do you have any idea in all these legal fees, if there's some portion of this that cost you to protect the two Abingdon businesses?
Well, I don't know how you
You
do
mean,
that, but-
I don't, you're talking about the two that would be, I don't know how we would break that out, because when we were, Deb, you might help me out here, I don't know, I think when we were talking, it was a general project. I mean, we weren't talking just about protecting one business, we were talking about protecting the whole, approach surface, departure services at Virginia Highlands. So, I don't know how you would.
Well, we did hire an attorney in Richmond who was supposed to be an expert in this type of thing. And of course, you have an ordinance about protecting the right-of-ways, and so did the county. And of course, he's not a local attorney, he was supposed to be a specialist, and he did do a good job. So, I mean, he defended those two ordinances. I mean, that was part of the plan with the SCC, that was made an obstacle for running this, for not running the power line underground. So a lot of that money did go in defense indirectly, or well, really directly, of your ordinance and of the county ordinance. And that ordinance, by being enforced, did protect, unbeknownst to me, exactly where the power line went on that part, or that the sentiments of Chevrolet dealership and Dutton Wagner, you know, I didn't know they wanted to move their place, but now by default, we've removed that problem for them. So a lot of that money did them some good, and it did do the town good. You certainly wouldn't want to move out of town limits, I don't think. And there is a couple of places that they could move to in the county pretty quick.
Yeah.
But you know, it's neither here nor there, really. The whole thing is, it turned out, we're really blessed about how it all came about.
It is.
And, you know, but that money, it's spent in the future to get to assure that we match the funds of the FAA. And we certainly got to have it for that, or you can't get it. And they are going to come. We're not going to not get them, because we've already got the first one. Now it will flow from now on out. So we know we have to have the funding for that matching grant, for funding, the matching funds. I'll get it out here in a minute. So we do not get subsidized on operations. By better management of the airport and a good board, honestly, I mean, we put a feather in our cap. We have actually made more money from hangar rents and fuel sales by a lot of programs that we implemented with less air traffic at the airport than we've ever had. Because there has been a downturn in the general aviation economy. And so we have less airplanes coming and going, but yet we have managed to sell fuel and sell it at a better price and a discount, even with discount, and make more money. But we've really applied ourselves. So we're doing as good as we possibly can do. We are limited by how much revenue we can produce, just because we only have really two items. We're not what you call an FBO, fixed-based operator, which you may not understand what it is, but we don't do charter, we don't do flight instruction, we don't do maintenance on airplanes and all that kind of thing. We don't, you know.
Landing fees?
We don't have a landing fee, but we do have a ramp fee that we implemented, and the purpose of that was to encourage people to buy fuel instead of paying a ramp fee. And it's worked out. Some people can't buy fuel due to whatever circumstance, but they pay the ramp fee, and it's a revenue producer. It's not a big amount, but we didn't put it in place to make money from that alone. We wanted to sell the fuel because that's where a bigger profit margin is. And it's worked. It's worked real well. And it's common, I mean, all airports, pretty much general aviation business airports, which I consider that's what Abingdon really truly is. We just, tonight, over 75% of our fuel sales and operations come from business airplanes and transit. So, I mean, we think we're doing the job right, but we want to keep doing it, and we don't want to show up in the black when it comes to matching funds.
And there are several corporate jets out there that had to be accommodated for that extended runway, but I think Ms. Patterson has a question.
I do, I'm sorry. And I didn't get your name, I'm sorry, with your introduction.
Oh, I'm sorry, John White's my name.
Mr. White.
Yes.
Thank you for explaining this to us and for you all coming and talking to us this evening. I just have a couple, well, 3 or 4 questions here. So right now, we don't know what the county is gonna contribute, and do you know when the county will let you know?
I think their situation and your situation are the same. We know that it's not in your budget. We know it's not in the county budget. Their fiscal year runs, I think, the same as yours, starts in July.
It does.
And I think we weren't here tonight to expecting you to even vote on this. This is their first contact.
Yeah.
Maybe you would have some communication with the county when they get, it'll probably be May before they do their budget. I don't know when you all do yours, but.
How much did you ask them? Did you ask
We're
them for
gonna
the
ask
full
them for
amount
the full
in
amount.
addition?
Yes, ma'am. We're
Okay.
gonna ask for the full amount.
And Mayor Lowe had mentioned something about cutting down to $40,000. Does any reason, what was the reason for them cutting that, do you know?
Well, that was the year that they came up revenue short by their projections. I mean, just a lot of things economically happened, so they had to cut something.
Okay.
And,
I didn't see that video.
I think almost every agency, including the schools
Oh,
and
yeah.
everybody else was cut. I was like most people, I think ours was cut unfairly, but that's just my opinion as a manager. Percentage-wise, we were. The airport budget is such a small portion of the county, but still, $100,000 is $100,000, or $117,000.
And I don't have any paperwork to show me your all's, what you make per year. Is there a way we could get a copy of that, what the airport makes per year?
I think what you're asking for maybe is a copy of their audit, because it shows their.
I have a copy of our financial audit, which Christie, I'll have her bring it to you tomorrow. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And a couple more questions, and I'll be done. Thank you for your patience. How many corporate jets and airplanes are there in the hangars now, as we speak?
We currently have 8 corporate jets. By corporate jets, those are twin-engine corporate business jets. Passengers up to, I guess, from 6 to 12, 6 to 10 average, 6 to 10 average. And then there are there's 5 other piston twin-engine planes. In other words, they're not jet, they're propeller planes.
Like
And there's a
Cessna?
yes, and there's a total of 71 aircraft altogether.
71 aircraft.
Yes.
And just out of curiosity, have you all asked them to help with this expense as well, or have they helped with this expense?
The corporate people you're talking about,
The
or the
corporate
airplane
and-
owners?
yes.
No, we have not.
Okay. That's just a question.
I understand.
want to be fair all the way
I understand.
around. Okay, and let's see. I think that's all I have. But I would like to see the audit, copy of the audit if I could.
I'll make sure that the
Before we
manager
vote on
gets
this.
that tomorrow.
It-
We give copies to the state, the county. Obviously, the town's never requested it, but we can do that on an annual basis if you like.
What I think I heard you say,
Mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong, is that you would like to be considered, you would like this to be on the council's budget agenda
We
for
would.
consideration. So you would turn your budget in and your audit in and your request in to Cecile Rosenbaum, and then the council would consider that request during the budget. Is that what I hear you say?
That's where we're going, and I know it's hard to do it. You need a dollar amount, and we were very reluctant to come here and ask you for a dollar amount because, number one, we don't know what the county's going to do, if anything, and we don't know what you're able to do, if anything. Anything at all is going to help us, but I don't know if we can turn a budget request in and leave it blank. If you'll permit that, or if you'd rather have a number. And you're probably going to know at the same time we know what the county's going to approve, if anything. My guess is that'll be May, probably.
It'd be March to May, yeah.
We
Yeah.
can put it on the non-departmental requests, if that would be okay with council, and those are due by March the 1st, and we have the form online for you to submit. And I think all we'd have to do is transfer the information that you've already provided over
Okay.
to that, and then make that a request in the non-departmentals. if council's
Except for the
okay.
audit, and turn that into Mr. Banner's office or Ms. Rosenbaum's office.
We can certainly do that.
And I don't have a question, but I have an observation.
Thank you.
And that is, because I'm gonna go with the high number, $300,000, that personal property tax comes in from aircraft. You all could ask up to $150,000. They've only funded you to 60. To me, there's $90,000 in play right there. It'd really be nice if they would would kind of give you what that they in the past have considered, and that would be the additional $90,000. That would make the shortfall only $27,000, and then they would live up to kind of you would be living up to yours by not asking for any more than half.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the information. Council, do you have any more questions or comments?
No, thank you for providing the aircraft services and stuff you all do. It does mean a tremendous amount to our community. It makes it more viable. It makes it when corporations come in, and they see the effort that's been put in down there, and it does make a difference. And I've had them tell me that.
Thank you for saying that. You're right. We hear a lot of people say the airport's the first thing that somebody sees when they come to our community and the last thing they see when they leave. And we try to maintain that image. So thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Just as a side note, we've been talking with a potential tenant, and the airport was one of their considerations as far as whether they wanted to locate at the incubator. Council, could I have a 5-minute break before we go into lights at the dog park? I need just a break.
What are you looking at?
Well, that's where we are now.
I'm somewhere number 3.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Still
we are
got
at number 3, Davenport. I'm sorry, but just 5 minutes, I promise.
They had about 5 inches of snow in Greenville, North Carolina. My brother was 8th grade, and so it's about
What's the score?
One of the things, one of the things that I wanted to see is, one of the things that I wanted to look at.
Getting to work at 8 tomorrow is tough from here.
You gotta be working tomorrow.
Yep.
Because he's doing a garage look and he's gonna work on it. And so then you're looking at, if we didn't have to come back to Chilhowee Marion and having some service.
But I'm hoping, so. Then I'll skip from home.
Should have man area, that'd be good.
Yeah, Mount Airy.
Man area.
You know something, hang on, I should take a time to run home. I have something that Emmett wanted me to give the council tonight, and I want something linked.
Okay, we're back in session. Thank you very much for that little break. We needed it. We are now down to presentation of traffic impact analysis for Green Springs Road as requested by Wayne Craig, council member. And it says Davenport representative, so I need your name again.
Hi, I'm Andrew Hayes. I'm
Andrew Hayes.
with John Davenport Engineering. We did the Abington Sports Complex Traffic Impact Study,
Okay.
which was completed in June of 2017. The objectives were to determine the proposed impacts from building the complex on the neighboring streets, review the operations of Cummings Corridor, review Green Spring Road relocation. Included in that was the Meadows development, includes the VDOT interchange project, and it did new counts for this project, which were done in 2016 for AM, PM, and looked at Saturday peak hours, since this is a sports facility and a high traffic turnover could be on the weekends. So this facility includes 3 baseball fields, 3 soccer fields, an outdoor amphitheater. It is going to be located off of the Cook Street extension on the east side, adjacent to the Meadows development. So the traffic generation is going to be from leagues, tournaments, games, practice, anything that goes on at the facilities. Normally when you do a TIA, you use a trip generation manual to get your trips, but for a sports facility, the data was only limited to one site, so we looked at other potential sites to create a custom generation for this project. And we chose the Freedom Regional Park in Mecklenburg County because it had the same kind of location and land uses surrounding the same area where your facility is going to go in. So for this, we found peak hour trips based on this site and used the counts. So one of the key intersections that we looked at was Cummings Street and Cook Street extension. Here, based on this site, the one left turn would not be, for the full build out, would not be sufficient enough. So we're recommending 2 left turn lanes, which would mean you need 2 entry lanes onto the Cook Street extension. And then, of course, as you carry those 2 lanes forward, you look at the next intersection, which is Cook Street extension at Green Spring Road. We analyzed it for 1 lane roundabout, but with the full build out, the LOS was F and the Q went back to the previous intersection. So you start impacting that intersection and that left turn bay starts backing up. So instead we decided to go with a 2-way stop control at this intersection and have the Cook Street extension just free flow out so you don't have to worry about the queuing issues back into the previous intersection. Other recommendations are like intermediate improvements to I-81 and Cummings Street interchange, left turn lanes recommended at Main Street and Pecan, and left turn restrictions during certain periods. Any questions? Okay.
Did I see that in Mecklenburg you use Freedom Park as a?
Yes.
Okay, because my brother-in-law does the Freedom Weekend down there.
Okay.
And they put in 125,000 people over 2 days.
Okay.
So you think that's, we'll get 125,000 here?
I mean, that was just one event. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure our counts weren't during that event.
Yeah, it's in September, it's mid-September their event is. In fact, it's September the 21st, 2nd, 3rd, or somewhere in there, that weekend. It's called Freedom Weekend. They have the big pond down there, the big thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Same one.
Thank you for coming tonight to explain this to us, Mr. Hayes.
Okay.
Left turn lanes on Main Street at Pecan. Could you be a little bit more elaborate on that, sir? Because I know that we have those already in place, so could you be a little more elaborate? Left turn lanes on Main Street at Pecan.
Yeah.
Coming from Main Street onto Pecan, or coming from
Coming
Pecan
from
onto
Main
Main
Street
Street?
onto Pecan.
Pecan. And what, going west or east?
Eastbound and westbound would both have 100-foot left turn lanes.
Left turn, okay, extend it to have another lane.
Yeah. To have its own lane. So they don't block the through queues and the right queues while they're waiting to cross traffic.
So in other words, correct me if I'm wrong, from the courthouse, am I right? You said east to west?
Yes.
So from the courthouse, turning left to go to Jack's. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're on Main
Women
Street turning
don't
onto
use
Pecan
these.
Street.
So
We use landmarks.
would we have to widen the road there to do that?
Just do away with
Is there parking?
Just
We
do away with
would have
parking.
to do away, I believe, with 2 or 3 parking spaces to accommodate.
You heard the discussion, excuse me, you heard the discussion earlier about, that we had about, Mr. Kelly took direction from the town council in the concept phase. Is that normal? Don't you normally use the traffic information that you guys, use to,
I guess,
to design the facility? Is that normal?
I guess it's up to you guys deciding how you want to build it and how phasing the project.
Well, does this lend itself to phasing? You say you have to have
With the
2
buil-
receiving lanes. We don't have 2 receiving lanes. Under what we put out to bid, we don't have 2 receiving lanes.
Well, if you build the 2 left turn lanes, then you need the 2 receiving lanes. If
So
you-
that means we've got to widen out after the project is built. Is that correct?
I believe your first phase is only going to have 1 left turn lane coming on.
Yes.
But we're going to have 2 left turn lanes. We've already agreed we're going to have a phase 1. What I'm asking you is, once we get the 2 left turn lanes, we don't have 2 receiving lanes. So we're going to have to widen out the street that we've already built. Is that correct?
Yes, you need 2 receiving lanes for your 2 left turn lanes.
And how do you add a lane to a roundabout without disrupting all the traffic?
To make it a 2-lane roundabout,
Yeah, 2-lane roundabout.
you can build out further out wide, expand it out wide. Which would
But you
take the right way.
disrupt all the incoming traffic, is that correct?
There's MOT ways, I believe, to lessen the impacts.
But you still have to maintain the traffic.
Yes.
Yes.
I would just comment, one of the things we discussed earlier, and I think this gets back to eliminating the roundabout, is if we end up having to do the 2, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, as we discussed, if we did had to do the 2 dedicated turn lanes and add the additional lane at Veterans Park coming in, then we would do away with the roundabout in favor of the
2-way stop.
The 2-way stop going in, which there is adequate room at that point in time to do the lanes that you're talking about.
So we're going to tear out a roundabout God, why don't we build what we're supposed to build for the sports complex now, instead of tearing out what we built? That makes absolutely no sense.
I do have a question. May I have I've got a question. I mean, I just want to make a statement. I want to make this also, we have lives that depend on our EMS. Fire department, Washington County Life Saving Crew comes through there. It has really been on my mind since I've heard this, and it was actually stated here the first night that this development got started and talked about publicly, that EMS was concerned about this. So the roads have got to be, seconds count when you're dealing with a life on the line. And I want to make sure these roads are sufficient, like Mr. Craig. And I'm not pointing that to you, and I want to say that to everybody. That's what I'm for, okay?
Of course, I don't know. I don't know the EMS, and Bob probably know better than anyone about whether or not that they would take alternative routes while the construction was even going on. They would come Main Street like that they used to. And that's as easy as, as easy as about anything else.
I think just being able to come out to a four-way intersection is a lot better than trying to come out the current way to get onto Cummings Street. You have to have somebody in your, sitting beside you just to tell you if there's any traffic coming down the road. But I think if it's coming out straight and Cummings Street, you're a lot better off.
Well, there's a lot of traffic on Green Spring Road right now. It's actually a by road for Main. So I can imagine what kind of traffic we're going to have on Main Street during this project as well. There's going to be a lot of traffic out there. And they can't get through Main Street. You know, that's my concern as well. It would be hard for them to get through Main Street traffic at, 5 o'clock in the evening.
I remember when we went through the 4-lane down on Main, down on West Main, right around, right there at Southern States, it widened out. And, it's part of growing pains. It's, it happens. I know as we've gone up to Richmond or different places, when they've gone from 4 lane to 6 lanes to 8 lanes, it's part of growing. It's part of paying the price of trying to, as Mr. Craig said, do things right. And so, I think that that's what we're all wanting to do. I think we're all wanting to do that.
Well, if we're all willing to do that, why don't we build the intersection that he's proposing right now? Because that's what he's projecting. Clearly, you are projecting that we're going to have this traffic.
Yes.
Based on your experience. Well, then why in the blankety blank don't we build what you're suggesting? That just totally baffles me. We paid $60-some thousand to hire you, and now we're not doing what you recommend. That's
well, we had, and Mr. Craig, I'm sure you remember this, that we talked about doing this in phases.
One second, can we release, if anybody, I want you to speak.
That's okay.
But if we are finished with Mr. Hayes, he's looking uncomfortable, so if you'd like to sit down.
It's okay.
Okay, so now, Rick.
The only thing I was going to say is when we talked about this originally, we didn't know whether to do it in 1 phase or 2 phases, what the affordability was, what the monies we'd have, what the monies we'd have for engineering, all the things. And we talked at one time, even with the study, that it might have to be a 2-phase project rather than a 1 phase. And that's all I'm saying is that we had explored the idea that it had to be a 2 phase. It's not something that's new. It's something that we had talked about. And I think that one of the things too is referring it to that infrastructure committee, exactly what you're talking about, and talk about the infrastructure committee and let them look at what the things that the way it could be dealt with.
Well, I agree with that. You can go ahead and award the contract. I mean, you have already done that tonight. But for God's sakes, let's take a look and see if we shouldn't build the intersection that he's suggesting right now instead of tearing out a roundabout later on. Because this traffic is going to develop, Rick. I mean, something, whether it's more or less than what he projects, it is going to overload that single lane roundabout. There's no question about it.
Right, and I think what we were thinking about is that, the Food City build-out's going to happen first, and the sports complex will come second, and depending on where that sports complex gets, that will give us time to find additional monies or additional revenues or the possibility of what could be left over in bonding. So I think that part of that is in looking at the long-term plan and being fiscally responsible.
If we're going to end up with a a regular intersection, then let's at least don't build the roundabout, build a small, regular intersection, whatever size you want to,
And that might-
because that lends itself to phasing. The roundabout doesn't lend itself
And
to
that,
phasing.
and that might be what that you look at. That might be what you look at.
Well, I then,
And then that could be in the contract negotiations, that could be the add-ons or the, you know, is.
Well, one of the things we talked about, and we've talked about it internally, and we've talked about it with all the traffic engineers that have been involved in this, is in doing the phase two, everybody initially, when we looked at this project, thought that the roundabouts were nice features to the developments. There's another roundabout inside this development, down toward where you would wind up going into the sports complex.
Is it a one lane or two lane?
It's a one lane, so it's the same size. Matt and I were talking about this earlier. If we want to try, and over the years, people will recall that we have tried to put roundabouts and discussed roundabouts within the town limits of the town because of their number one, their popularity, and number two, that they do seem to flow traffic through them unless you get into something like, God forbid, a DuPont Circle or something out of DC that you get lost on. But if we don't build a roundabout, if we build this two-lane straight in, straight out, I don't foresee that there would ever be a situation where we go back and build a roundabout.
well, you'd have to build what I was saying, Greg, is that you may not want to, this is a multi-lane intersection, is that correct, with turn lanes and all that?
Yes, it is intersection number 13.
What I was saying, if you didn't want to build all that, you could do it later. But I agree with you, the thing to do is to build it right now.
Well,
And I understand what you're saying about a roundabout. They are attractive, they do. I don't know about fire vehicles and things like that. Bob knows more about that than I do. But my point is, let's build something that we don't have to tear out when we can see in the future that we're gonna need it for capacity, for traffic to get into our sports complex. That's all I'm saying. And if I can, Kathy, I'll make a motion that we refer this to the infrastructure committee, if that's in order.
I don't know that is it the same motion that we've already
No,
voted
just to
on?
refer to the
To look at?
To look at and report back to council, that's all.
What, I guess my question
I
is,
don't
and
understand.
I need direction, because again, I work for you all. I work for the collective majority of you all. I need to know is if the contractor is going to start work between now and when we convene again, are we moving forward with what we voted on earlier tonight, or you all voted on earlier?
You go ahead and move forward
Yeah.
and see if we can, that's what we're gonna try to figure out, see if we can figure out the best thing to do. Now, you don't wanna delay it, that's
So
fine.
what you're saying is you'd like to have the infrastructure committee meet
Oh, they're gonna be next week.
and if necessary, add to the project. Is that what you're saying?
Change it, change it.
I would just, you know, the infrastructure meeting's gonna happen next week, one way or the other. I've indicated, by the way, I wouldn't be present at that meeting, but Ms. Rosenbaum is capable of being there on my behalf. And I don't think there's a motion necessary. We'll put it on the agenda for a report from the infrastructure meeting.
There you go.
All right.
At the next meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Where did you come from?
Thanks, Andrew. Raleigh, and he's going back
Yeah,
tonight.
tonight,
back to
he
Raleigh
said he had
tonight?
to be at work in the morning. Yeah,
You
really.
won't be.
Technically, yeah.
You won't be there till you won't be there at 2 o'clock, 2:30.
So now we are down to consideration of request to place a fire hydrant at or near Trestle 7, adjacent, to the Virginia Creeper Trail. Excuse me. We got Mr. Kelly up.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I was taking up his, I was asking him a question.
Where were we again? This
The
matter?
fire
Number 4.
Fire hydrant.
Oh, yes, I was, contacted by Charlie Smith, Steve Smith, not Steve Smith of Food City, but Steve Smith out on Creeper Trail and
Smith Farm.
Holston just a farm.
Smith Farm, and it's my understanding that the Washington County Service Authority is putting in new water line out there. I believe they, Charlie contacted Bob as well.
All of us.
And all of them.
I heard from him.
And, you know, I left word with Charlie that I was okay with us trying to help in getting the fire hydrant put out there, but it was ultimately the call of the service authority. So I think what he's asked is for the council.
Do we do a collective letter or
Yeah.
recommendation that we placed out there? Because the closest one is right there at, we turned down on that road at,
New Hope.
yeah,
Good hope.
what's the road at?
Keller-
Keller Hall?
Keller Hall?
Keller,
Keller Hall.
that intersection. Get up there.
And that would be at the
Be right there
most
at the
expensive trestle that we have. So.
Well, you know, one of the things about it is there's been trestles that have caught on fire before, and while they're doing that work, it would seem like it would be advantageous to have something there. And, you know, I mean, I think it would be good for us to do that.
So is council saying that you're in favor of Mr. Kelly writing a letter of support to the Washington County Service Authority?
Right.
And ask them to
Consider
consider putting a fire hydrant out there?
Right, I will make that as a motion, actually.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mayor Lo?
Aye. Well, we are finally down to Abingdon Main Street. Carrie Baxter, quarterly report.
More of a August through December report, but I'm going to break down some of the things that we've done via Abingdon Main Street according to the four-point approach that I have to adhere to via the National Main Street Program. So the first one I'll start with is the design. Design supports a community's transformation by enhancing the physical and visual assets that set the commercial district apart. Abingdon Main Street and the Economic Development Authority have partnered together to provide a facade improvement grant to 3 downtown businesses. Improvements to Wolf Hills Antiques, Potter's Opticians, and Zephyr's Antiques were completed during the first and second quarter of the fiscal year 2017-2018. Plans are currently in motion to continue the facade improvement grant in 2018. The old-fashioned white Christmas also meant the visual aspects of design, and the window display contest enhanced the look of Abingdon during the holiday season. Economic vitality is the second approach. It focuses on capital incentives and other economic and financial tools to assist new and existing businesses, catalyze property development, and create supportive environment for entrepreneurs and innovators that drive local economies. The Washington County Small Business Challenge organizers have brought Abingdon Main Street on board, and I will serve as a mentor for that challenge. In October, we hosted Mark Wilson. He's a small business consultant. He came to Abingdon and provided one-on-one counseling to businesses and provided a classroom learning experience for our merchants. The next one is promotions, and promotions positions the downtown or commercial districts as the center of the community and hub of economic activity. There have been several activities that have taken place that fall under promotions. The first one being Busker Fest, which is a market-driven event that correlates Abingdon's artistic nature and tourism. Buskers, as you know, are placed around town in front of businesses to increase foot traffic during Labor Day weekend. This year's festival was plagued by a weather anomaly that discouraged locals and tourists from participating. However, our shopkeepers and restaurant owners still reported positive sales for that day and weekend. Participating artists also said that they would be returning in 2018, and planning stages have already begun for this year's Busker Fest. Abingdon's Old-Fashioned White Christmas was a coordinated effort between Abingdon Main Street, the Community Development Director Tanya Triplett, Tourism Marketing Director Amanda Livingston, and Barter Theater's Marketing Director Kalon Roberts. For the first year, the following activities occurred. Sunday, November 19th was the first annual holiday merchant open house and window display unveiling. Shop Small Saturday on November 25th included caroling by the Barter Players and roasted chestnuts from the American Foundation. And Saturday, December 9th was the announcement of the winner of the window display contest. Including the town events such as the tree lighting and Christmas parade, we were able to market this as a month-long celebration of Christmas in Abingdon. A survey was conducted after the open house in which entrepreneurs reported very impressive sales. Using this as a measurement, it is deemed very successful and will return the Sunday before Thanksgiving in 2018. A second survey will be sent out this week to poll business owners about holiday activities and sales for the months of November and December. However, Abingdon Main Street can report, after speaking with several merchants, the events did have a positive effect on sales and foot traffic in town. And the last point being organization, which involves creating a strong foundation for sustainable revitalization effort, including cultivating partnerships, community involvement, and resources for the district. Building relationships between merchants and Town of Abingdon employees was the first goal met. Monthly reports have been given to Town Manager Greg Kelly, as agreed to in the contract between AMS and the Town of Abingdon. Working with Tanya Triplett, Kevin Worley, the entire tourism staff, Chuck Banner, Mr. Kelly, Miss Rosenbaum, Kim Kingsley, and the Town Council has been a pleasure and made this transition for Abingdon Main Street very smooth. Approximately 90% of the merchants in the Abingdon Main Street footprint have been visited on multiple occasions. Gaining their trust is imperative in setting and achieving goals. One marker of this success is the number of businesses who did participate with us in the old-fashioned White Christmas events. External partnerships with the media have also been built. Interviews with WJHL and CYB were conducted prior to the start of the holiday season to inform the community of upcoming events. On November 17th, a press conference was held at the Barter Theater to officially kick off the holiday season, the day White Christmas premiered. And a second live interview was conducted with WJHL in partnership with Barter Theater and White Birch Juice. A post-event article was written in the Bristol Herald-Courier that discussed the positive results of this venture. In addition to the partnerships built with merchants, the town, media, AMS is working with other Main Street communities in Southwest Virginia to advocate for our region as a whole. On Monday, November 6th, we held a director's luncheon here at Chicken Little, and our next lunch will be in May in St. Paul. Looking forward to 2018, a board retreat has been planned for Saturday, February the 3rd. At this session, we will construct a work plan that will be set for the year. We will also be joined by Kathy LaPlante of National Main Street, and Ms. LaPlante will aid us in setting the work plan, inspiring volunteers, setting fundraising goals and strategies, and this is a $3,500 value that we're afforded for free by the National Main Street community. In conclusion, Abingdon Main Street has met the criteria for the four-point approach in the style of events conducted, partnerships formed, economic development, and beautification of Abingdon. AMS has also abided by the agreement between the Town of Abingdon and Abingdon Main Street and has completed the reports requested. The requested meetings have been attended with the Tourism Council and Economic Development Authority. Once the work plan has been finalized, the budget will be completed and turned in to Mr. Kelly by March 1st as requested. On behalf of Abingdon Main Street Board of Directors, I would like to thank the Town of Abingdon for the support they have given our program. Our organization is extremely thankful for the monetary and in-kind support the town has shown us. We are also very appreciative of the support you have given to the new Executive Director. The accomplishments we have achieved in the last 4 months would not have been possible without the Town Council members and Abingdon staff. We are looking forward to the possibilities 2018 holds for this continued partnership, and we thank you for your time. Questions?
Questions? I have a statement.
Yes,
I want to thank all of the businesses and that participated in the unveiling of the decorations that sure made Abingdon Main Street and other areas in Abingdon very warm and welcome for our guests and for our families and all the citizens of Abingdon. They did a wonderful job.
They really did it. No, I don't think it's ever been prettier in my life.
And thank you for what you do as well.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
You and Tanya.
Thank you all.
And Kevin. And Chuck.
I think they've all worked very well together.
Yes, they have.
I think I saw Tanya and Carrie on 2 television noonday shows, right? Yes. Okay. So we are down to update on council attendance for VML Legislative Day, January the 31st through like February the something.
February 1st.
Yeah.
Is it the 1st or the 3rd?
First is a
It's
Thursday.
It's just the one-day event.
Oh, just a
The
one-day event?
legislative, yeah.
We have to go up,
You have to go up the day before.
it's two-night deal, so we go up the day before and then have legislative day and come back the following day.
Who is signed up to go?
Ms. Patterson indicated she could not go. You and Mr. Humphreys and me and Ms. Eisenhower.
I just got a notification, I have a doctor's appointment that day that takes a year to get. And
Rick, I'm sorry to interrupt you, are you confirmed to go?
No,
I didn't know if you were.
no, I haven't confirmed to go, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
yeah.
Mine was up
didn't
in,
know,
mine was up
so-
in the air, so.
Okay.
And I haven't, but I will by this Friday, I will know.
I have a little bit of concern. Did you all read that they are not in the General Assembly building this year? They're in a smaller place. And so the question is, do we have a topic that we need to lobby them for? Like, is there something that we need to talk to them about? We got our road, we got Interstate 81, which is why we went last year, and our Dylan McReynolds won the If I Were Mayor contest, but I have not received any notification as to whether or not anybody's won from Abingdon. So if we don't have anything that we need to talk to them about, unless, you know,
I don't know if we have any topics that we really need to.
As of right now, my understanding is they're supposed to be sending out, both VML and some of the legislators, some of the topics that they think need to have some support, but I don't have those yet.
And I did ask if we could do something with videos from there, and thank you, Miss Rosenbaum, for commenting on trying to get some things back, printed copies of the bills that they plan to introduce in the current session,
There's a site.
and how they impact our local government.
I think they place them on their website, but I didn't want to tell you for certain until I
They
can get
do
it put
place
up
it on
there.
the website.
It would be nice if we could do satellite, you know, and be able to see the meeting instead of travel. It would save us some money.
well, we can
but-
see the House and Senate floor committee
session.
meetings now.
Right.
They're gonna video those this year.
But the VML, you know, all the speakers that come, you know, that would be nice, because it would save money,
During
but
that day.
that might be something we could look at in the future.
The last day to cancel is 27th?
Well, that would,
Oh.
I don't know.
that would be, yeah, they would, of course, be able to set the remote. So, is Dr. North gonna be talking this time? Will you be, do we even have a
I haven't
lineup?
put that schedule out yet, have they?
The agenda just says that there'll be a legislative update by VML, and that's basically it. So it's very brief. There's practically nothing on it. So-
There's a meeting with the new director of VML,
Right.
which has taken place here in the last few months.
I guess I just need to know, for Ms. Kingsley to find out whose room we need to cancel.
Well, I just asked her what the last day to cancel is, and she said January the 27th.
Okay.
So,
I'll know by Friday.
Yeah. And we can get the fees back that we've already paid to VML for that. It's not a whole lot, but we can get those returned back to the town. So.
And
All
as I receive any information, I'll pass it along to you.
the
as to what they-
crowd is gonna be, you know, it was bad in the General Assembly building, but in their temporary location, it's gonna be, unless we have something we really need to lobby for, it's gonna be
Elbow to elbow.
you won't be,
Is
it'll
this
be
a long session this year or a short session?
long session.
Long session.
Ugh, yikes.
Long session.
It is a long session, and I thought, you know, if
What a
we
time to
see
do
something
that.
coming down the pike later, maybe we can go when not everybody else is there, if we needed to, but anyway. Okay, so the deadline is January the 27th So please let Ms. Kingsley know by January the 25th, just for good measure. Okay, and then I had asked Mr. Kelly if he would just talk to you all briefly about the enterprise zone that the county has included the town's tech park in, if you'll just,
Sure. The county is adopting an enterprise zone, which is designed primarily to set forth a geographic region within Washington County, and obviously the town is within Washington County, that would set forth areas where businesses could be solicited for location and become eligible for grant funds in order to help establish them there. We're very fortunate in Abingdon to have the Small Business and Technology Park, and the county has asked if we would support that being put into the enterprise zone. And it would do a lot of things good for the town if we did that, and in fact we've done a letter of support to that effect already, that we support that being brought into the enterprise zone because it opens up the potential for folks to be able to get grant funds, to be able to locate within the technology park. So rather than have a few sites in Washington County that have been designated, most of those I think over the years have been more industrial sites, we're sitting on a gold mine in the technology park that opens up an opportunity for things that are not industrial related jobs but have the potential to bring in large quantities of new employees to those facilities. And you know, as we move forward in developing those things, or trying to develop those things in the technology park, there is the possibility of incentives in addition to the grant money that could be given, because the town owns all of those properties outright. Now, once upon a time, several years ago, we committed that entire park to the medical school that was getting ready to try to locate in the technology park, but that's since gone by the wayside, and I would love to see the park take off and start seeing some buildings be constructed out there that would bring in some fairly large numbers of employees to our community. And if we bring in those large numbers within the town limits, it's been our experience that most of those people, especially if they're the white collar types of jobs, and not all of them would be, but if they're the white collar types of jobs, people in that type of profession tend to want to live in the town of Abingdon as well. And people who live in the town of Abingdon love to spend their money in the town of Abingdon, so it has the potential to generate a whole lot of revenue for the town that we currently are not getting at the technology park. Right now we have a governmental building, we have the small business incubator, and the small business incubator incubates those businesses and tries to put them there. It's not always going to be that they're going to want to locate there, but they might want to locate in different areas within the town. And then we have one accounting firm that is in the tech park. The rest of it is wide open for prime development. And I guess the only one negative thing that I can say about the technology park that we've heard over the years is the fact that we do not have that second way out of the technology park. But I will say that Mount Rogers Planning District has applied for funding with VDOT for the first phase of trying to open up Frenchmore Boulevard across the wetlands, and that's the most expensive part of that project. And so if that ultimately worked out, then maybe at some point in time, we know how long these things take, but maybe at some point in time, the connection can be made there all the way up to Cook Street, where we're looking to make this connection on Green Springs Road. So I support that being brought into the county's enterprise zone, and it's a very large enterprise zone, not just in the town of Abingdon, but it extends all the way up to, I believe, Glade Spring and various different sections, and perhaps even a little further to Bristol. I can't remember the exact footprint.
I looked at the application, and they used all of the property that was available through, this has to be approved, and actually was approved by the Department of Housing and Community Development. So it was just approved. And they used all the property they had except for about 250 acres that they, and some of the rules were the reason they didn't use maybe the 250 acres, because it had, some of that property has to be contiguous. So we have been approved, and that park is shovel ready, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's got the best fiber probably in Southwest Virginia, frankly, and water, sewer, curb and guttering, sidewalks, you know, tree-lined streets. So it's ready. It with this new incentive, I think you're going to see something. We've been working extremely closely with a potential tenant, and I think you're going to see some things happen in the very near future.
And these lots, some of these lots are large enough, and we explored this years ago with one company that was in the incubator, but it didn't work out. Some of these lots had the potential to bring in 300 plus employees to one central location on one track. So it could be a big thing, and with the higher ed center there, the community college there, exit 14 getting redone, and I know Mr. Howard's talked for years. We've gone back and forth with this about trying to make that added entrance off of Berry Drive into there, which would be a big to-do to get people in and out of that area. But lots of potential out there. Of course, I can't read the tarot cards to know exactly where it will play out in the future, but it is a step in the right direction, and doesn't cost the town any money to do it. So.
I'd like to ask a question about signage. Could we put a sign up? Do you plan with the council, and you know, maybe you're just approval, but put a sign up and the lots, you know, like how big the lots are and what we have to offer there, so that when folks drive by from the interstate, they can see it. It's got to be something bigger than probably a 4x8. But I'm thinking, you know, a good sign. But I mean, if they know that that land's for sale, then they might buy it.
From the interstate, I don't think the town owns any lots that you can see from the interstate. The county government building.
It didn't go away.
Well, maybe since they're going to incorporate, you know, kind of with us, then
maybe they'll
we
let us
might be
put
able
one
to
up.
put a sign up there.
Right.
Might be able to put one that just has the whole subdivision up.
Yeah.
And, or the way it's
Picture that we
subdivided,
have.
Yeah.
and just put the lots
plats.
available, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, the plats and what, the fiber optic that you're speaking of and
It'd
all
be-
that.
It'd be cheap enough. That'd be cheap
Yeah.
enough to do.
It's a one-time, you know, advertisement, which will be up for several years probably.
Yeah, it's sort of like, doesn't Oak Park have that at the entrance?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, Oak Park-
And we
Oak
have a
Park does that.
schematic, you know, of the tech park at the incubator.
I'm not
you
sure
know.
I understand.
Oh, well.
Yeah, you never understand.
No.
But there is already a laminated schematic of that, so
One that's larger.
Yeah,
I bet we have a
done by
digital
bigger.
copy of it somewhere.
Yeah, that's no problem. We have marked them all off with realtors over the years, and didn't work out, but.
Well, may I just make a motion to, I mean, I don't want to step over bounds or whatever, or when we're designated to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to put a sign up there.
I'll second that.
What, to ask the county
Yes,
to
the
have
county,
it
yeah,
shown?
yeah.
Yeah, ask the county, yes.
Right.
With the county's permission.
Right.
I'll second that.
I just wondered if their property goes all the way over to where you could be seen. I mean, that's just something we need to check
Well,
out.
either
I would be-
that-
I would be in favor of the sign.
Either that or maybe the community college right down there at the bottom of the hill, the community college, they let, Virginia Highlands Festival, you know, put some stuff up there from time to time.
Maybe I better add either or the community college.
Or wherever we can find a place.
Wherever we can
Wherever
find a place,
we'll
yeah.
Find a spot.
Please.
We might not be able to find one, but we might.
And also internet. I mean, we don't have anything listed with real estate agent yet, right now as of this time, correct? We don't, or we do?
Well, that's,
That's
yeah.
what it is.
There's,
Another topic.
let's discussion on that.
Okay.
So do we have discussion on the sign?
The only
Okay.
discussion
So then
is.
call for
Call for the
vote.
question.
Okay, call for the question.
Roll call.
Said same thing as roll call. Okay. Mr. Gregg.
Aye.
Ms. Patterson.
Aye.
Mr. Howard.
Aye.
Mr. Humphries and Mayor Lo.
Aye. Okay, now,
Now, not a question, but since I used to do signs, I'll give you a little insight. I'd like to see the plat on the sign so that, you know, we know what's for sale, so that the potential customers know what's for sale. And like I said before, you know, this high-tech fiber optic, fantastic fiber optic that they have is that they're, you know, probably a drawing card to help with their decision in buying. And the sewer, and it's shovel-ready, whatever you want to put on there.
And definitely
entice.
definitely a phone number.
Definitely a phone
or an
number,
email-
contact.
Or an email address.
To either a real estate agent or however you all are handling that.
Well,
we wouldn't need a real
Send it
estate
to Ma-
agent.
send them to
if the
Matt.
sign works.
Send them to Matt.
Send them to
Okay,
Matt.
Matt.
No, I'd send-
I think with the county, this
Town
being the
manager.
county's gig, and, we have an economic development person, we could have them contact
Tanya.
either the county's economic
Tanya,
development.
let's have them do
board.
Tanya.
Tanya.
Let's have them do Tanya.
Tanya for the tech part.
Yep.
And wherever else we need to advertise this, you know, I'm thinking internet, I'm trying to find, you know, what do we have to offer? How can we get it out to people? You know, economic development, board or committee would help with that as well, probably.
I sent that. That tech park has got its own ordinance.
Okay.
And I sent that to to Tanya and asked her to share that with the Economic Development Authority.
Okay.
And you can actually put townhouses in there. It's a mixed-use development, right? Not mixed use, what's it called?
Multi.
Planned
Well,
unit
yeah,
development.
It has lots of different, uses. It has a master plan that sets forth everything that's supposed to be in there. Everything from, you know, copies, stores to cafes,
It has a landscape plan.
Yeah.
yeah, landscape plan. I mean, it has to go through the planning commission. I mean,
Plan-
there
it's a
are
plan
lots of.
use
It's a
development.
plan, yeah, but it's also,
Right.
it is.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it was a, I'll tell y'all more later. But anyway,
And we also might, you might as well point out, there are two other large tracts out there that we do not own.
That
And
belong to
those-
Highlands Union Bank.
Yeah, they're owned by Highlands Union Bank, so we really can't market those for.
Well, they might want to market somehow. We should
they've
probably-
got a real estate
They've got a
agent.
real estate agent.
I guarantee you they would wanna sell it.
Yeah.
Well, they tried to auction them and it.
Oh, they call it
Yeah,
motivated?
they tried to auction
They're
them and it didn't.
motivated sellers.
But while we're on that, you know the lot beside the incubator? Somebody has dumped 4 tires out there.
Well, pick them up.
All right, so thank you.
What size are they?
Yeah.
That's our new
probably
cross-training.
balls.
That's right, a new cross-training facility. Okay,
We
and
can
Mr.
recycle
Worley
that.
looks
Yeah,
like he is
we
just
wouldn't move
waiting
it.
with bated breath to come up here to talk to us on the request for lighting at the town's dog park.
Bless his heart. Bless all y'all's heart.
Yep. God bless us, everyone.
Are y'all gonna include dog warmers in that,
I don't know, this is y'all's request, this is not mine.
No, it wasn't ours either. We had a citizen send an email and I forwarded it
Yeah.
to you.
Now, this is, Mayor Lowe and members of council, I was given the task to come up with some financial costs to put lighting at the dog park. That's included in your packet. There was about 9 pages of everything, and I actually sat down and did some research through, checked with other facilities and different things that would work and not work, and talked to some local vendors and got some costs. I included those in there so you knew what the cost would be. But again, this is not, and I gave you kind of a recap page at the beginning of it. It had a few things in it, and I'll kind of go through some of these for consideration. The total project, if the request was to light the dog park, but we've had numerous requests over the years, and I'll elaborate to that in just a second, of lighting other areas, and including the skate park. So if you're going to do in one, you would look at a total project, and it wouldn't, and then if we did that, we would also have to look at lighting the parking area. So the cost that we come up with at this point, again, this has not been done through an RFP. There's not been any budgeting or anything done with it. The total cost, and this was, again, looking at, this number is probably low, because again, I was just researching stuff off the internet. If you got a contractor to do this, they're going to have markup on everything, but the total cost would be $29,441. If you'll indulge me for just a second, a few other things I'll elaborate to this. I know the request was made to light the park. When the park was established in 2010, it observed the same park rules that are established in our town ordinance 5476. It says all town parks will be closed from dusk to dawn, except for those for events that are sponsored excuse me, by the town of Abingdon. The Coombs Recreation Center property observes those same rules and guidelines. Things of consideration to even consider going this route would require the town council to amend the ordinance, therefore to allow lighting, and not only with this park, but with all parks.
But we already do the tennis park
The tennis courts
for a park.
are set apart, so that's, so
Well, we do that every day.
yeah, those are already lit, and of course those aren't listed in the town ordinance, and of course again, as specific, there's no specific thing. It says tennis courts can be listed at, but those have always been established. But the town ordinance already says that it's supposed to close it. So again, we've got a variation. So either you need to put the tennis courts in as an exception.
Right.
Instead of amending the rule. Don't amend the rules. Well, I guess what I'm saying, because there's a lot of other things that would come into this if we, of course, again, these are just costs to put it in. Would not include cost of maintenance, electricity, and other utilities. A few other things, we're very fortunate to live in a area that we do have 4 seasons. Typically, no one really needs to be out there from November to March, after hours, after 5, 6 o'clock when it does get dark. The time changes, and as time changes, then allows us more freedom to be in the parks later, allows the public to be in the parks later, and they're already in there till roughly 9 o'clock, which is about what you would be lighting this area, again, for consideration. If we light one, we're opening up the opportunity and open up Pandora's box that all requests. In my 28 years, I'll give you a few of these that I've had, and I'll be very brief with these. Coombs Center lighting up, the dog park, has not been one I've had, but the skate park, the playground, and the shelter. Main Street Park, lighting of the gazebo and the sitting area. At Eberhart Park, lighting of the shelter and the basketball court. Veterans Park, lighting the playground and the shelters. A Street Park, lighting the shelter and the stage. Kings Mountain, lighting the upper playground and the shelter. Munchkin Park, lighting the shelter. At the Y Park, lighting the shelter. Alvarado, putting lights in those shelters. Again, it's just lighting, areas. But one of the big ones I probably have heard, I bet you 100 times or more, is lighting the Virginia Creeper Trail from the trailhead to Mead Meadow. And we even did a cost estimate on that. Just to put the lights in that alone is over $125,000. So if you're going to consider one, you got to consider all. Again, I'm just giving you the information. This is what it would cost. It's not been budgeted for. There's no time frames been established. I'll tie Tony into this as well with the police department. If we extend our hours, we're going to have to extend patrolling. Patrolling also would mean potential for additional officers and vehicles. I mean, I don't know, in public works, I mean, one little request sounds real good to look at it, but when you look at the bigger picture, there's a whole lot more that has to be considered in doing this. And so I tried to give you as much supplemental material to consider with this. So that gives you, what I've got. Is there any questions that you have from what I've presented to you?
And as you say, dusk to dawn, and that's our rule at the Creeper Trail, exactly.
The rules to Creeper Trail, all our parks observe that same.
But also, it is, but it's not enforced. Because they do that 100-mile run that's on the Creeper Trail.
But that goes into our rule that says in 54, events that are, are sponsored or co-sponsored, and we do actually sponsor with, we have most stuff on the Creeper Trail. That the one extended event, the Yeti Run, is.
Well, there was another one I know that they did that wasn't sponsored by the town. Never heard of it before because I had people stay with me.
Yeah.
That
The
went
Yeti
to it.
Run actually this year was very successful. Just to note it, but it was also now designated as an international qualifier. So we will have more international draw to this event this coming September.
Well, I agree with you when you talk about the time change, but I also know that apartment dwellers, irregardless of the time change, if it's 5:30 when they get off work and it's dark, they might not have a place to take their dog. Right. And that feeds into stuff that they would like to do.
Sure.
And I understand the domino effect. I've understood it when, I understand. That doesn't necessarily precipitate a domino effect. It can be a perceived domino effect. There are places that are conducive to having extra light at night, and there's some that aren't very, very conducive. I think that one of the fine examples is the tennis park. Mm-hmm. And I think there's selected things that you can do around town, especially when you have maybe, and I know when it's cold like right now, it's not gonna happen. But to do it in a limited time amount, a limited time frame, not going to cost as much electricity, but it is going to be able to open it up for some type of in winter time. I know that I don't go out a lot, but I know that I see a lot of younger people out, and they're out, wanting to run or jog or whatever they might want to do, play basketball. The little Park Street Park down there, there's a little basketball court down there, and if you lit it to 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, kids would probably play there. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think that it's necessarily as bad as we think it'll be, or maybe as good as we hope it'll be, but I think there's some wiggle room in there that we could look at doing some. And maybe, as you spoke just a minute ago about making exceptions, you said, well, we have the tennis courts, which is a park, and so we opened up they've been open for years. I mean, ever since I was a kid, they've been that way. And I don't think it's caused a lot of problems and hasn't caused a lot of extra expense. And tennis now is on the way out. Tennis, I understand, is one of the least played games. And so what we might want to look at is make an exception for one or two things, not all of them. I think it would be counterproductive to do all of them. But if we did one or two or tried them, maybe do it on a limited basis. I know the lighting is going to be more permanent on some of them, but some of the ones that people have asked about dog park, and I was asked about dog park 2 or 3 times, and people live in apartments. And people say, I don't have anywhere for my dog to run. I go in and it's dark, I get off, it's dark, my dog has nowhere to run, and because I'm afraid my dog's going to get away and I can't find it, if it's in a fenced-in area, it'd be a lot better. So unless you're Bob's dog, and the fenced-in area doesn't hold Bob's dog. So anyway, what I'm saying is, I think we might have some wiggle room. We just need to, I think if we work together, we might find some good things to do. I don't want to do them all. I don't think we'd have to do them all.
So Kevin gave you the information, which is that the dog park would, if you let the dog park, it would cost somewhere around $30,000 to do that. Are you saying that you want to explore that, maybe put it in next year's budget, or look at it, or what?
Budget consideration.
Let's just let's look at it and see.
Yeah.
And Kevin might come back to us and say, hey, listen, for $30,000 for the dog park, that's not as good. Maybe we can take that $30,000, we do 2 or 3 things, and those would
I'd
be
rather
better.
see another dog park on the west.
I would
end.
rather
There you
see
go.
another
Yeah.
dog
That
park.
kind of money, and I mean,
If we put a temporary dog park in, close to where somebody's already lit, find a.
Yeah.
for property we already own.
So
Yeah, probably we already
let's
own it,
refer this to the Recreation Commission for, for some of their input as
Yeah.
far as
There
A,
you go.
lighting the dog park, and B, looking for a second location.
There you go.
Rec Commission meets at the end of this month.
Yeah.
And I'll bring that up at that meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's nice to have you open to anything we say, so give it if you don't like it.
Oh, you know me, I'm open.
You brought something up, and I
I'm
don't
cheap,
know.
but I ain't easy.
I don't know where the email went, but I think I forwarded it to somebody. There was a request about tennis courts. What was it?
It's about exploring whether
You
or not
said
we
that.
could do pickleball, have it lined off to do pickleball on the
Right.
outdoor tennis courts.
We already have it lined off at the rec center. We're gonna do that when it gets springtime at the courts over here on Church Street. We're going ahead and take and line it off over there like we did at the rec center.
Yeah, Dr. Jack Butterworth, that used to be with hospital down in
Did you
Brooks
tell him
Wellmont.
that you're gonna look
He's a
at
big pickleball
whoever
player. He
it
comes
was?
up to Abington to play
From
pickleball.
that email?
Oh, yeah, it's already been.
I picked those
looked at.
sets up at an
I mean,
event
did we have that
and
first?
then brought them back and we just kinda,
Oh, the
just
same
kinda
day
picked
you
up
got
and
me?
then all of a sudden they grabbed it and everybody's just kinda run with it. So it's been a good thing.
It is good.
thing.
It's real popular.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
So, apparently, Kevin, I forwarded the email about pickleball. Kevin and Greg and Deb and Cecile and, as Ed used to say, in company, all got on it, and they have already looked at doing that request also.
Pickleball tournaments.
Okay. We're down to, old business and matters not on the agenda, and Mr. Craig.
Mayor, I have a motion to make.
Okay.
I move that town council authorize Penn Stewart to represent town council in the December 27th EEOC complaint and instruct the town manager to pay for it out of the general fund.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? Roll call, please.
All right, that was Mr. Craig.
Aye.
Yes, ma'am. And Mr. Humphries was the second. Excuse me. Mr. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Patterson.
Aye.
Mr. Howard.
Aye.
Mr. Humphries.
Aye.
And Mayor Lo.
Aye. Okay. Council member reports. We'll start with Mr. Craig.
Mayor, the only thing I'll do is report briefly that the sunset transaction on Optinet, the BBU sale, has hit a snag and it may or may not get done now.
Okay. Ms. Patterson?
I just have my council report written out here. If you don't mind, I'll just read it and we'll put it in the record. After our town council meeting in December, when Mr. David Rose came to educate the council in regards to their role in determining the financial standings of the town, I became very concerned after learning that the town of Abingdon has not had a comprehensive financial analysis completed. Some may ask, what is a financial analysis report? It's a comprehensive financial analysis report that accentuates the strengths and weaknesses of a project or entity, in this case the Meadows project, communicating the project's strengths and weaknesses in an accurate and honest manner which is helpful to ensure the town council and Abingdon town staff understand the economics of the project and if the town's revenue from the project will pay for itself. And that's the definition. For 21 months, we've all been told that a financial analysis has been completed by members of the town of Abingdon staff for the Meadows project, when in fact this is not the case according to Mr. David Rose with Davenport and Company. Mr. Rose stated and was very clear that his analysis focused solely on determining only the fiscal position of the town of Abingdon. Mr. Rose's company doesn't perform financial business analyses. Mr. Rose also stated that he used information provided by the town and Food City and that he didn't examine or evaluate the appropriateness or accuracy of the data provided. To the best of my knowledge, neither the town council nor has the town staff seen a financial analysis or the assumptions used to develop the data given to Mr. Davenport. I am in favor of building a sports complex, but I think we should be very careful about how we spend the bond money so we don't end up like Bristol at the Falls. Having a detailed, comprehensive financial analysis will help us as a council and the town staff make educated decisions. Additionally, we should begin construction immediately of temporary ball fields for our citizens to use until a complex is built. And I'm reading this information and would like this copy to be entered into the minutes of the January 8th, 2018 council meeting. In addition, what scares me is the Green Spring Road realignment is at $4.5 million, give or take. So I wonder where this $2.25 million is going to come from for the Green Spring Road realignment. And if I'm correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, the roads for the infrastructure is around $7.5 million. VDOT's going to pay half that as well, so that would be somewhere, around $3 million or so. So that's 3, 4, 5, and 5.25 or so, give or take, $1 million that we're borrowing $10 million on the bonds. That disturbs me. And I want to have enough money to pay for the complex as well. And I just want to let you know that's what I got on my mind. All due respect. This is with all due respect. I have a right to my opinion, and I'd like to give that to Miss Rosenbaum to put in the record. And at a proper time, I'll have a motion.
I would say now would be the proper time. We passed matters not on the agenda, so now would be the proper time.
I'd like to make a motion to have an independent, comprehensive financial analysis performed on the Meadows project. The analysis should contain details of the cost, revenue, and the fundamental assumptions used to develop that data. This analysis should be used by the town and shared with the citizens of Abingdon.
I second the motion.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Well, I guess the thing about it is that did Rose go up with us or not with us, with the people up to the Standard & Poor's and Moody's when it was explained? They told about the project, what it was, and then the financial position for the town, the proposed revenues of the town, and then we still got the AA rating. We've got a AA rating from that. So basically, to me, Moody's and Standard & Poor's were saying, or I might be wrong, we're saying it looks like you're all in a great financial position. The project looks like it is doable, and with the facts presented, that the funds generated will take care of that. Will take care of and pay for the project. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Well,
So Moody's, I couldn't argue with. I can't argue with Standard & Poor's or Moody's. I'm not sure that any of us at this table can, and I know that Rose said that what he did was that he could not recommend anything. He just presented facts, and the facts was that we're in a strong position, that this would generate this much revenue. The only place you're going to be able to get the revenue figures from are going to be Food City. Well, I can tell you, Freddie Parker did a study. He did the same thing, took the things and extrapolated them out, and actually came up with that we would get more revenue than what Mr. Rose said.
Yeah.
So I think that there has been a lot of stuff that's been done, and this is just since we're discussing this. And I think that to me, I think that Standard & Poor's and Moody's are the hallmark that I would use, or the measuring stick I would use to decide whether the project was good or not, because they said that they gave us but by them giving us the bond rating that they did.
Well, I respect your opinion, but I say that I'm not arguing with them, because based on the figures they were given by another company, I don't see why they wouldn't say no. If those, and I haven't seen the figures. That's the thing. We have not seen the figures. Have you all seen the figures, Mayor?
The
Mr. Howard?
the
We
figures
did.
are in the.
You all did see it.
They're actually in the
They're
report
in the
that
report.
David handed out.
They handed out to you. Yeah, but I mean, an itemized, detailed, that was a beautiful drawing, you know, with the percentages and things. But I'm talking with actual, you know, I've never seen the actual detailed
It says-
financial analysis and a professional done, and I'm
Yeah,
nothing,
It says the
nothing.
numbers down to the dollar and sometimes even the cents in that one report, that he submitted. Now, the thing that, and here we go back to this again, you know, yes, Food City provided that information based upon letters of intent that they have from other companies, restaurants, hoteliers, small businesses, and the town provided David Rose with our tax structures for what we would charge for those things, and gave him a listing of other businesses in town and how much they generate based upon similar types of businesses. So that's how he came up with it. When we went to New York with Standards & Poor, they thought it was one of the best presentations that they had ever received.
Well, and I respect that, but you know, based on, you know, what we know, I mean, there's not, is it very common to have financial analysis done before we hand over $10 million to a project, or?
Greg, I don't think Cindy or I, either one, would dispute Food City's figures at all. The question is, where do these businesses that are going to, that have signed letters of intent, where are they coming from? Are they coming from our existing town limit? Well, let me finish, please. I've listened, please, let me finish. Where are they coming from? I don't see the demographics of Abingdon justifying new retail development, and that's what I would like an expert to tell me. I've been advised that this is the same mistake that was made at the Falls. They overestimated the net revenue that they were going to receive, and they're not able to make their bond payments, and they've had to restructure their debt. I would like some professional advice on what are our net revenues minus expenses, and I don't think we have that from a professional person.
Well, I would just say, and I hear you, and I respect that, but I would say to you that this is much different than the Falls. In the Falls gave incentive money to a developer. In our case, the developer gave incentives to us.
The contract states net new revenues.
Net new revenue.
It does not say they cannot move a business from one location to another. As a matter of fact, I got a phone call from a business that wanted to move from one end of town into that, and he was complaining that we had said, or that they weren't a net new revenue.
Who are you talking about, Kathy?
The contract with that Marathon wrote with the town, right, states that these numbers that are projected have to be net new revenues.
And that was what was presented.
Do we have a contract? Because I've not seen that contract.
This is the joint development agreement.
Well, they didn't guarantee any revenues in that I read.
Well, you know, I can't go back and change your mind, Mr. Craig. And
Well, I'm just asking you a question. I didn't see any contract in the joint development agreement, anything about revenues.
Well, we have an agreement with Food City, or with Marathon, as the case may be, to where that before we ever got into this, we would not agree to them simply moving stores from Kmart Shopping Center into a new development. And they have
accounted for new businesses. I can't give you that information, and they're probably not going to give it to you because
You can
it's
ask them, though.
You can ask them, but it's proprietary. And they have other businesses willing to move into those vacant businesses that are not businesses of the town of Abingdon
Right now.
right now.
But what about, well, there's a business in my mind that I know due to the road structure, when we get the exit 17 done, they're gonna have to relocate, and I was under the understanding that business is most likely gonna be moving there. I don't wanna say what business it is, but do you know? I mean, is that?
Not into the Meadows, it may move into one of the other existing sites, retail.
So this is all gonna be brand new businesses. There's not gonna be any businesses pulled.
Net new businesses in the Meadows site.
All right. We discussed it. Let's call for, I'd like to call for the question.
Well, Greg,
We've
I
called
just,
for the question, Mr. Craig.
can I?
We've called for the question. Mr. Humphries called for the question. It's time for the vote.
Well, he's not done with his questions, with all due respect, Mayor Lowe.
We beat this one long enough.
Well, Rick, you may have, I have a question that I'd like to ask Greg. It really doesn't have anything to do.
Rick, would you like to withdraw your call for the question and let Mr. Craig ask?
I just
ask
want to
the
ask him one question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I went to your office and asked you for all the agreements on the Meadows, just for information, not to be argumentative about anything. And you told me that the only two agreements there were the assignment and the joint development agreement. And now, see, I wouldn't be maybe not debating this if I had all the information, but you didn't give it to me.
Didn't you say this was the joint development agreement? This is the joint development
Well, there's
agreement.
nothing in the joint development agreement
says that.
that says what you all are saying.
Well, you have, we can go back and look at it. I'm happy to meet with you
Yeah,
and go
let's,
through it.
I would,
let's-
and I have
let's-
something to ask too, and I'm gonna say it right now in front of everybody, the public.
I would call
I
for the
would like,
question.
you
I would
called it,
call for the
but
question.
I need to ask this question, please, sir, and this is all due respect, I have a right,
Well, in all
I'm a
due
council member.
respect, all due respect, we beat this thing for 15 minutes. I mean, we can talk about it all night and not call for the question.
I would like to have all of the contracts that we need to see. It's not fair for 3 members of the town council, or maybe 2, I don't know how many has seen this contract. We've asked for all these contracts, and we've not gotten them, and I wanna see them. I'm a council member, I'm entitled. If somebody else in here in this audience gets up here in these seats, you're entitled if you're a council member. And I think that we deserve that, and that's what I want.
As far as I know, you've been provided with everything. I mean, we have on more than one occasion gone back and researched this. I mean, if you folks will look under your code of ethics, I mean, you have a responsibility to do your due diligence and your research, especially when you come on board here and a prior council has taken its action. I can't go back, and if I did that, I'd spend every minute of every day going back and pulling everything that happened during the past administrations. I've worked for 3 or 4 different councils, and I'm not trying to hide anything from you. There's nothing to be hidden. This is open. It's, Mr. Craig, I understand you even had a meeting with Mr. Smith one-on-one.
That's correct.
And I assume you could have asked those questions of him because...
I did, Greg, and he didn't tell me anything like what Kathy's telling me now, that there is some sort of agreement that you can't move from one place to another. If I could have gotten that, I wouldn't be
asking.
I wouldn't be asking. And as far as the joint development agreement goes, I've done my homework, I've read it, and I don't believe that what's been said here tonight is in the joint development agreement. And we'll sit down.
Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kelly.
It's something that can be determined.
So I'm gonna,
Could you make an appropriate
wait,
to show them?
exactly.
And then I'll call for the question.
I'm going to ask right now if Mr. Kelly, Ms. Rosenbaum, Ms. Patterson, Mr. Craig will meet before the next council meeting and discuss this in full detail. And, you know,
I'm
if...
gonna have to have the Food City and the Marathon people present as well.
In an open meeting or a closed meeting?
If you want to hear proprietary information, which is, that's what it sounds like you want, and we can't give you that. If you want to hear proprietary information, you're gonna have to meet with 2 council members that haven't heard. We've heard all the things that we need to hear to make our decisions. So if you need to include Mr. Smith and Mr. Spangler, that's fine, but it's time to vote on this motion.
I am not, I'll put it to you like this. I ethically and legally cannot give out the proprietary
Well, no,
information.
we know that.
Right.
And to
Well,
get...
how come they got it
They-
and we didn't?
They, as far as I know, they didn't get it.
We didn't get a copy of
We didn't
it.
get a copy of it.
You didn't get a copy of it, but were you told?
When
They
we
were
first
told
saw
net new business.
net
We're told
new
new business.
businesses, when we first saw the financial report, it had, that was that first financial report we saw that said net new businesses, and it projected what types of businesses. It didn't say who. Is that correct? It said what types of businesses and how much property those types of businesses were going to occupy in that development.
Well, I just want to say, you know, being in a business and working with a company and being in customer service, and I've been in business for a long time and grew up in business with my grandfather. I think we have to have the tools to give unto us, and I think it's fair, I think it's responsible. I'm not being disrespectful, I'm just making my opinion here that we need what we need as council members. We are 2 council members that don't have everything given to us. You guys have gotten all the things that you needed. It's time for us to get what we need as
And
well.
I have asked Mr. Kelly to, and Ms.
And
Rosenbaum
that's
to
with
meet
all
with
due
you.
respect.
Right.
Okay, I can't say that enough. I'm not ill, I'm not upset, I'm just saying, I think it's time.
Right.
And I'm happy to try to line something up with the developers to see if they will give you that information. And they have not given any more information to any of the other council members than what you have heard here tonight.
Here's the difference. The past council,
Other than, look, Kathy, can I say one other thing?
Sure.
Other than when we went to New York, there was specific disclosures made in New York by Mr. Rose during the presentation about specific things that would happen, and also the word net new was stated time and time again to the bonding agencies. And so nothing, you know, I don't even know what the names of these corporations are. I don't know any of that information. The only thing I know is that there is no net, every business is supposed to be net new that comes to this development.
All right, can I call for the question
Yes.
now? I need somebody to read the motion.
I need the motion, yes, please.
Ms. Patterson read it verbatim from her notes.
May I read it again? Do you need to? Do you want me
Yes,
to?
please.
All right, let me put my glasses on. I make a motion to have an independent, comprehensive financial analysis performed on the Meadows project. The analysis should contain details of the cost, revenue, and the fundamental assumptions used to develop that data. The analysis should be used by the town and shared with the citizens of Abingdon.
And it was seconded by Mr. Craig.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
No.
Mr. Humphries?
No.
Mayor Lo?
No. Thank you. Okay, council member reports, Mr. Humphries.
And please forgive me, I had tonight a framed wayside that is going to be used in the Veterans Park for women in the military service and the armed forces. Mr. Yuri gave it to me to present tonight to the council. I will make a more formal presentation. I want you to know I don't have it. I walked off and left it, and trying to get my car started. It wanted to act up on me. But I will have it and bring it to the next council meeting.
Okay.
What else do I have? I don't guess anything else.
Mr. Howard?
No.
And I've attended all the meetings. I've forwarded all the emails that I've received from all of the residents. I think the council and the management have seen those. They're generally requests like striping the dog park, or, you know, I mean, like striping the tennis courts and lighting the dog park, or vice versa. And, you know, I haven't missed any meeting I'm required to go to at this point with the holidays. I think we've all kind of gotten off kilter just a little bit, and hopefully we are regrouping and ready to get back to everything that we need to do. And I do want to read this, and I don't know if I've read it before or not, but Mr. Greg Case was adamant that if I hadn't read it, for me to please read this, and I'm glad Mr. Worley's still here. It says, "Dear members," and he meant members of the Abingdon Town Council, "we are writing you to acknowledge and recognize Mr. Kevin Worley. He is an excellent representative for the town of Abingdon in his position as Director of Parks and Recreation. His friendliness and gentle effort to work with all the people in the community is of the highest standard and very much appreciated by all who come in contact with him. 2 years ago, Kevin rearranged his schedule to accommodate the State Line Wind Symphony concerning concert risers owned by the town. As a board member of the State Line Wind Symphony, I can state that his cooperation enabled us to have a greatly improved concert production. Also, my wife and I own a farm along the Creeper Trail, and there are times we have to access the trail, and Kevin assures us that anytime there's a need that we should feel free to access. This creates a perfect relationship of respect between property owners and the town. Recently, town employees needed access to the Creeper Trail trestle at the Watauga parking lot to remove debris that had collected at the base of the trestle, and we had no reservations allowing them to cross our property, and this was due to Kevin. Having had several contacts with Kevin, my wife and I wish to acknowledge and recognize Kevin as a great representative of the town. It is our wish this letter can be read at one of your town council meetings, and that you might consider and recognize Kevin in some manner. You have an excellent Director of Parks and Recreation. Sincerely, Greg and Ruth Case."
There's one more thing I want to say.
Okay.
So there's one more thing I meant to say, and that is and I meant to say when he was here, you all saw Johnny White, who was here with the airport board. It is a big reason why we're being able to do the parking lot and restrooms out at Watauga, and be able to have the cars not in such a dangerous position because of the hard work, the dedication of trying to make sure that happens. And it was a big part was Johnny White's property. So, Ms. White, if you're watching, thank you, and we really appreciate it.
Okay. So we have appointments to boards and committees. Abingdon Redevelopment and Housing Authority, appointment to fill the expired term of Dan Smith, who did not wish to be reappointed. Tourism Advisory Board, appointment to fill the expired term of Susan Yates, the Arts Depot, who is not eligible for reappointment. And Economic Development Authority, appointment to fill the expired term of Milton Maiden, who is not eligible for reappointment. Council, would you like to go into closed session?
I'd like to entertain a motion that we just put these off for another month unless they have to be filled tonight. We could lay off.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, any discussion? Roll call, please. Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
And Mayor Wood?
Aye.
Thank you.
So we have the January jams, the Washington County Chamber of Commerce annual lunch meeting is January the 11th. Have you all notified Ms. Kingsley if you'd like to attend the annual luncheon? Okay. John Paul White and Sam Lewis, January 12th. John Moreland, January 13th. Tours at 2 with Jack Wright. Frank Sloven and the Dirty Kitchen and Rob Icks and Ray Hensley. Washington County Business Challenge, January 23rd. As of about 3, we had 10 people that were signed up. Muddy Magnolias and with Andrew Scotchy. Abington's largest indoor garage sale, Booker T. Jones. Nomination for Red Cross, a celebration of heroes, and I would like to ask our public safety officials to take a look at the celebration of heroes and see if you have someone that you would like to nominate, because that was a great recognition for Officer Lucy last year. And the Rotary Frolics is February the 2nd and 3rd, and I can't think of another announcement, so I will call this meeting adjourned.
Booker T. Yeah, that's the only one I've heard of.